You okay? Is it there?
Mhm.
I've got a farmhouse, and for the smoke detectors, the buyer's agent needs to take care of that, even if it's in an estate.
Usually the sellers take care of the smoke. Where is it? It's in Rhode Island?
Yeah, Foster.
Yeah, it's usually on the sellers to take care of
Yeah,
it.
even if it's in an estate.
Yeah, the only time that they typically throw it on the buyers is if it's bank owned, and then the bank just says they're not gonna deal with it.
Okay.
But typically the seller or whoever's running the estate will
Okay.
take care of it.
All right, great. Congratulations on your collaboration.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. We have a great session today of Ignite on negotiating the deal. Such a great topic. How's everybody doing this morning?
Awesome.
Good. Everybody all set for Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Getting there.
Yes, she says as she's
Yes
shaking
and
her head.
no.
Yes.
Crazy. We'll get there.
We'll get there. Exactly. We will get there. Is anybody traveling tomorrow? Anybody hitting the road tomorrow?
Oh, Jesus. Nope.
We just flew into Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Very nice, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's better than freezing cold New England.
I know. I was talking to a couple of people this morning, walking their dogs, and they weren't feeling it. Actually, they were feeling it.
Mhm.
I know I ran out of the house without a coat on this morning. I'm still like not in winter coat mode. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
I'm not a big
the house,
coat
it's
fan.
cold. I got out of my car here in North Kingstown and
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's
So,
freezing.
yeah, well, we left Newport, a couple of days ago, and the wind was just kicking up. So, if it's cold is one thing, but when that wind starts whistling down those roads, it
Or
gets
the
icy.
water. Mhm.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I
Yes,
know.
I was out walking my dog this morning, wishing I had my heated socks and gloves on.
Exactly.
They'll come out. They're going to have a robot dog walkers eventually, so you'll be okay.
That's a good idea. Get that going.
Exactly.
They're vacuuming our living rooms. They'll come up with a dog walker.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Well, the only problem with that is I considered buying one of those robot vacuum cleaners. Then I realized it looked like a big fat frisbee and my dog would try to eat it.
Oh, geez.
Crazy.
$600 toy for the dog, huh?
Yes.
Exactly. Oh, my glasses here. So maybe before we get started, for the three of us that are on, Deb and Steve and myself from representing the New England region today. So maybe we'll just go around and quickly introduce ourselves so that way you know who we are. And then we can also put our contact information in the chat as well in case anybody needs anything. And Deb popped in the script book as well, and the negotiate the deal PDF. So thank you. So Deb, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I'm the sidekick today. My name is Deb Hayes. I'm productivity coach up here in Westford, Massachusetts. We're about 45 minutes northwest of Boston. And we're at Market Center 614. Coaching program has been around about 3 years, doing really well. Over 50% listings. Love it. That's my goal. I'm going to maintain it. So I'm excited to teach negotiating. What are we doing? Negotiating the deal. Really good topic. And I really want to thank everybody for coming. It's a busy week for people, but you're investing your time into the program, and we'll see you we'll see you. We see you here, we see you later. And that's great. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. Excited to have you here and helping us out today.
Thank you.
And Steve, how about you?
I'm Steve DeAngelis. I'm the Market Center technical trainer for Market Centers 184 and 700. I work with Rhonda, Tom, and Mitch, and where'd she go? Alicia are all part of our operation.
Wow.
This is my 6th Ignite class that I'm participating in for this session. So
Good for you. Thank you.
that's what you get for answering the phone Friday at 5:30 at night.
I had to switch to, it was been a little funny
But-
month. That's okay.
For those of you that have not downloaded the participant guide yet, it's in the chat. I also put the script book back in there. So if you haven't gotten a copy of it yet, it's there waiting for you.
Great. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Steve and Deb. So I'm Rhonda Messenborg. I am team leader for Keller Williams Coastal. And yes, work alongside of Steve, and so excited to see some of our agents on here this morning and all of you. So today we're doing elementals number 7, which is negotiate the deal. I was so excited when I signed up, when I was signing up to teach a few of the Ignite sessions, that this one was available, because this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about is negotiating. So I'm super excited to be here, and I'm happy to have Steve and Deb here along with me. We want to make this super interactive today, and really want to hear from you guys, your thoughts, and really equip you to go out, especially if you're a newer agent, to go out there and feel comfortable negotiating, because this is like the core thing that we do for our clients as realtors, and representing them is moving them towards that finish line and finding common ground with the other side, whether you're a seller. So super excited. Please, just like we're informal, raise your hand if you have something to say, or just pipe in. Use the chat. We'll be monitoring all of them, but we definitely want to hear from you. So before we get started, does anybody have any questions or anything that you've gone over in previous sessions that you want to talk about before we dive into the material today? Oh, okay. How does everybody, before we jump in, how does everybody feel like when you hear, like when you know that you're going to have to negotiate something, like what's the first like emotion that comes to your mind? Is it something you're nervous about, something you're excited about? Do you just kind of not feel much of anything either direction?
I think go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, if you get to the point of negotiating, that's one of the prayers you've been asking for. So if you're prepared, it should go well. You know, everyone's trying to get to the finish line. So if you're in negotiation and you're either a buyer or there's a seller on the other end, everybody's interested in the same thing, to get it to a point that it closes. So if you keep it positive and realistic, it shouldn't be a major challenge. You know, there's challenges, but they're all achievable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Tom has so much experience. Tom is one of our long-term agents here. Long-term, I don't even like that word, but he's one of our mega agents here. So absolutely, he's going to have some great input today. And Tom does a lot in both residential and commercial. So if anybody, I know Tom always puts himself out there. If anybody needs help commercially, he's a great resource. He's your guy. Okay, Nita, what were you going to add to that?
No, Tom said it nicely. I was telling I'll get butterflies. Nervous, yeah.
Yeah, I loved what Tom said too about just keeping it positive, right? I think sometimes we feel like we have to go in and just kind of go in and serve our agents by just going in and getting what they need. And you can absolutely do that and serve their best interest, but be very collaborative about it, because it's just all about negotiating is just a conversation. It's a conversation that you would have in any other instance. And it's just moving the ball, moving that big gap where you start out with, and just moving that gap to find common ground. So, and absolutely you can do that by keeping it positive. Anybody else?
I would agree with that. I just feel like as a newer agent, I don't necessarily have all the knowledge to be able to leverage the negotiations to my client this early on. I have a background in business, so I am totally comfortable with negotiations under normal circumstances and in, previous jobs. But just being so new in real estate, the negotiations don't make me nervous, but I guess right now I would say that I would feel unprepared if I knew I had to negotiate for a client today.
Awesome. And hopefully, Caitlin, I love that you said that and you put that out there. And hopefully by the end of today, you're going to have some tools in your tool belt of how to reach and what language to be able to use. And in the meantime, if you are a newer agent and you do find yourself all of a sudden you're like in a position, which would be awesome. It's an awesome problem to have, right? That now you have to negotiate a deal. Lean on your leadership, right? Lean on your leadership. Reach out to your productivity coach. Reach out to your team leader. We're all here to help you. And I, answer texts and calls from agents in our market center on a weekly basis for somebody saying, hey, I'm in the middle of negotiating this and I'm not really sure what direction to take it in. And can you just give me some pointers on maybe what I can do here? We're so happy to do that and to help you through. And then the next time you're going to know, because that's how you learn, right? You learn by building up on that. So and I love that you put that out there, Caitlin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So so why don't we jump in, and I think, who's going to run the slides? Steve, are you running slides for us today?
You want me to?
Oh, look who's here. Hi, Pam.
They're all pleased. Look how pleased they are to see me, or are we frozen? No,
I think we're frozen.
we're frozen.
I have look, now we have Jen here too.
No, we are nice and frozen.
Okay. Okay, so Steve, do you need me to let you share your screen or you can do it?
I gotta load the slides first.
Okay. Sorry, we have a full house here in North Kingstown today, so I'm just
Sounds
saying.
like it.
Jeez. Hey, where's my party invitation, huh?
I know. Okay, so Steve's going to get those up on there. In the meantime, I will just, we have been talking about, if you guys have your participant guide handy as well. So today we are talking about, oh my God, that's so funny. We are talking on the run your business side. So negotiating contracts, this is something we do to run our business, right? Versus the grow your business side, where we're lead generating, we're going out on listing presentations and buyer presentations, and we're looking at real estate. Now we're on the other side of the equation where we're taking the action. And today we're talking about negotiating the sale. Okay, so what we're going to do today, so here's the agenda of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to break down the common points of negotiation. We're going to look at the 3 Ps of the 3 Ps approach to negotiation. We're going to analyze counter tactics. Oh my God. I swear I did have 1 cup of coffee today. Obviously 2. I needed 2. So we're going to analyze counter tactics. So somebody gives you an offer, right, for a listing that you have. And now what do you do? Right now you have it. Maybe you went back and forth a couple of times. So what are those tactics that you can employ, that you can counter and go back with? Again, always just trying to inch it forward to find that sweet spot where everybody is happy, right? Or as happy as they can be. I remember long ago, and when I worked at this little boutique firm back when in 2011, and the broker of that company he always said it, and I've carried this with me and I've repeated it many times, that a deal comes together where in the spot where the seller thinks they didn't get quite enough and the buyer thinks they paid just a little too much. And then everybody's happy at that point, right? Everybody felt like they gave a little, and that's typically the sweet spot on where things come together. So I always remember that from good old Ray Mott. So then we're going to maybe do some script practice and maybe kind of go back and forth, so that way you guys can kind of get the feel of it. Script practice is awesome. And it always makes me smile when I teach Ignite, because as soon as you say we're going to do script practice, it's like half of you jump off. all of a sudden everybody has something else more important that they need to do. Don't do that. I only say that because if you can just get a couple of script practices under your belt with your peers, all of a sudden it's not so scary anymore, right? And don't let the first time you're going out there to negotiate something be using your clients as your, as a person you're negotiating for. Role play with another agent or another peer, because then you're going to work the kinks out and you're going to know what it feels like. And then you're going to be like, oh, maybe I should have said this instead. And it's just going to keep building up your confidence to where eventually it's a little bit more fluid and you don't have any of those scary feelings. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to recap and create our success list and then review the daily success habits as well.
Okay, do it.
Okay, so move us to the next slide, Steve. Perfect. Okay. So here's some things to consider, right? So first of all, how can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of the deal? So who wants to answer that? How can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of the transaction that you're currently negotiating?
Rhonda, I think if you can be precise and clear in your negotiations, and if there were some others that were negotiating on the same thing and they were making it a lot more difficult, you would surface to the top.
Exactly. Yep. That's great. That's a great point, Tom. Linda, were you going to say something?
I was basically going to say the same thing, in that, if you're unable to negotiate successfully, you're going to kill the deal. So being able to work with others to find solutions is a really effective way to make sure that constructively you can get the deal done.
Love that. Yeah. So love that. Constructive is such a great word. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you are, as realtors, as agents representing our sellers or our buyers, if we're not able to negotiate effectively for them, absolutely. Sometimes that could actually start to sour the deal a little bit.
Right.
And if there's two
Absolutely.
agents, right? If we're agents on either side of that negotiating deal, if the agents are butting heads, right? Because there's like, and the egos are getting in the way, no good. Like no good. You gotta leave your ego at home, right? Stick to the facts. You're working for your client, but you have to leave your ego out of it, because we have the ability to help that deal move forward and also take a step backwards. So you do have to remember that.
And I think it's important also either on the buying or selling side, just clarity, either what the buyer or seller is looking at, especially if it's timelines. The timelines could make or break a deal. And if you have opportunities and the flexibility to create a lease back in some things. And unfortunately, I had a deal that was completely stalled, and I gave up $3,000. It was a spread that everybody was locking horns. But at the end of the day, I still wound up with a $20,000 commission. So people were grateful that I did it, but it was still a great payday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's
Looks
not
like-
something you typically want to do, but if you, I don't know if it's a tool in your tool belt, but if it's a difference between a zero commission and still a bonus in your life, it's worth a consideration.
Looks like Mitch has a question
Okay,
or a
great.
comment.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I've always heard be the river, not the stone. The stone gets worn by the river.
Love that.
Okay.
Love that. Okay. And so what are some other ways that we negotiate in everyday life, right? Sometimes we just we're thinking about this as like negotiate real estate transaction. We negotiate so many, right? In so many ways. So how else are you negotiating in your everyday life?
Very simple things. You know, I just remember raising my children. It was a negotiation every morning. You know, what are we going to wear today? You know, it was
Right.
a way to satisfy both sides.
Mhm.
Yeah, you
Creatively,
must have, yeah.
without tears.
Right.
Right, right. It's a give and take. It's a give and take. And it's like, and it's just about finding some compromise that you can live with on both sides.
Rhonda, I remember a story. One of the Keller Williams agents was a mom, and she talked about negotiating with the kids because, you know, with you know, a mom and raising kids, and you know, it's real estate's a tough job, but you know, carting kids around at the same time is even tougher. And she came up with an idea because kids would always complain, oh, you were going to go to this appointment, that appointment. And then she wound up giving them like, say 200 or 300 every closing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she's driving down the road and they're reminding her of appointments that she's running late for, or a call that she needs to make.
Love
Isn't that
that.
terrific?
That's called
Awesome.
bribery.
That's awesome. Love that, Tom. Shelley, what do you have a question or a comment?
No, I just have a comment. And one of the things that I negotiate more than anything else in my life is time.
Yeah.
When and where I'm meeting someone, whether it's family, friends, or whatnot, but time is one of the things I negotiate the most.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. Okay, and so what skills? So what skills do great negotiators possess?
Listening.
Ah,
Perfect.
Yep. Awesome.
Any others? What other skills?
Just communication.
Being able to communicate. Absolutely, Alexander. Absolutely. What else?
How about some reasoning skills?
Yep, absolutely.
Patience.
Patience. Yes.
The
Being
ability to
positive.
see the ability to see the negotiation from the other perspective.
Love that.
Deep breathing.
Say that
Shelley.
again.
Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, Anita, say that one more time. Oh, okay. Who said something after that? I'm sorry.
The ability to be diplomatic. Diplomacy goes a long way.
Yeah.
Depersonalize.
Sometimes the ability to sacrifice.
Yeah, right. And compromise, all about compromise.
And in the chat, Sarah Cosby says empathy.
Love that. Yes. You guys got it. Those are all great skills. Absolutely. And so Mitch had mentioned listening, right? And so also like, let's throw in there about asking questions. So why would asking questions be important when negotiating?
It helps open up the route of communication. Asking questions helps clarify things on both sides.
Right. Yep. Anyone else?
Asking a question can also give you an indication or a flat out direct answer as to, is this a deal breaker issue for you? You know, ask, is this something that we can, you know.
Right. Well, it's like knowing the motivation, right? You need to ask you need to ask the why, right? So it's not only understanding what it is that your client wants, but why they want it. So it all blends together. So then, yes, then you can find out if it is a deal breaker, or you can find out if there is any wiggle room in that, right? One thing I always like to ask clients is when you're getting down to money, are you drawing a line in the sand, right? And I don't like to draw lines in the sand, if at all possible, when you're going back and you're negotiating on price, is you always maybe want to try to leave it open a little bit. So again, once somebody draws a line in the sand, you want to just be careful that you are not shutting the door, right? So the guy I've always thought of it this way is if you are going in like kind of hard and fast on a negotiation and you're kind of putting a line in the sand that this is the low, we're not taking a penny under this amount of money. You're almost like putting your hand up, right? Like nobody like talk to the hand, right? You want to keep that door open because you want a two-way communication. It's very hard to talk to somebody if they've slammed the door in your face. And now you're really kind of just talking to a closed door. You want to have that ability to keep that door open. So a lot of times, like if my clients are saying, listen, the most we're going to pay, we're not going to go over, say, whatever, 300,000. We are not going over 300,000. I might go back to the other side and say, listen, you know, the sellers are agreeable to, or the buyers are agreeable to 300,000. I don't think I'm going to be able to get them any higher than that. But this is kind of where they're feeling most comfortable, right? And it's just language. The language, I didn't say, listen, they'll pay 300,000, not a penny more. If you're not going to put it together, we're just, right? Instead, it's just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get them any higher than that. Let's see, would your sellers be agreeable to that price? Can we make something work there? So a lot of times, you know, your client may be giving you that hard and fast language, and it's up to us, again, to keep that collaborative spirit alive in the negotiation and maybe change the language a little bit and say, listen, I've talked with them, you know, they're okay at 300. I don't think they're going to go any higher than that, but let's see what we can do. Because chances are, if maybe if they're at 310 and you're at 300, and if that seller comes back and says, you know, we will, like, any chance we can do 305, you can then go back to them and say, listen, like they want to meet in the middle at 305. I know you said 300, but I just want to ask, how do you feel about three? And they might come back and say, you know what, we'll do 302, right? And then, but you've been able to just keep that conversation flowing again, just to try to find common ground. And Mitch, I just saw what you had popped in there, building bridges, right? Is that what you said? Hold on, let me open up the chat.
Building bridges, not fences.
Yes,
Perfect.
I love that. Yeah, that is exactly. So yeah, so it's important to ask questions so that way you really understand where your client is coming from and why it's important for them on those negotiating points. Okay. So and before we get off the slide, Steve, so just here on the left, this graphic here. So this is, you know, kind of like the illustration of how a negotiation is going to go, right? So the seller is going to talk to their seller's agent, right? And that's going to be a circular conversation because that's going to be ongoing. And then the two agents are going to talk together. The buyer's agent is going to communicate with their buyer and then come back and forth and back and forth. Okay. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so you guys are going to turn to page 4 in your participant guide. Find that here and do have a copy of it. Okay, so anytime that somebody makes an offer on the property, right? So you have a listing and you receive an offer on that property. So there's one of 3 things that are going to happen. Who can tell me what those 3 things are?
Is it a single offer or is it multiple?
So in this case, we're just going to say it's just a single offer. So you get an offer in hand, Tom, for one of your listings. What are the 3 outcomes that could possibly happen in that situation?
3 outcomes is it would be accept it, refuse it, or start negotiating if it made sense to your buyer or seller. Well,
Exactly.
of course, to your seller.
Yep, exactly. It's either going to be accepted as is, it's going to be flat out rejected, or you're going to get a counter offer and you're going to start entering into the negotiation phase. So this is telling us that we can, so this is just, so we don't have to break into groups to do this. So we're just going to like brainstorm for a few moments and you can write them on page 4 there. So it says, what are negotiation issues that may come up? So it's not always just about price, right? But what other issues might you be negotiating when in the course of doing a real estate transaction? You guys just shout them out.
Timelines.
Yep.
Inspections.
Repairs.
What was that?
repairs,
Repairs?
repairs.
Yep. Yep.
What else?
Credits,
Mhm.
Terms?
What kind of terms?
Financing.
Financing, yep, okay.
Sometimes personal property and fixtures on the
Exactly, yep.
on the property.
Don't do it.
Don't become a furniture salesman, right?
Don't do it. Do that
Run,
later
run.
after P&S.
don't walk, run.
Yeah, we know. Those of us who've been around know.
Anything else?
Rhonda, it would be for business or not. That was an
I'm sorry, you were
unusual.
cutting out. Say that one more time. Sorry, you were cutting
Oh,
out.
sorry. My case was that the place was a mixed use and we need the zoning board in order to make sure the business was able to be in. That was a tricky one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sabrina. I'm so glad that you said it because I was going to bring it up if nobody piped in. So I'm so glad that you said that. Exactly. Sometimes you're going to have to negotiate on what you want to use the property for,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe you want to add on. Maybe the house is not quite big enough and you want to be able to add on to the house. That might become a negotiation point that it's going to be contingent on the ability for you to do what you want to do at the property. Absolutely.
And if it's like you mentioned, if it's a multifamily, if, you know, what the conditions of tenants are they paying? Will they have to be removed? I just negotiated one yesterday and my buyer's going to inherit a bad tenant. You know, the price reflects it, but he actually got it because the seller likes the fact that he doesn't have to deal with it in order to close. My guy's going to just take over a lower price and assume a non-paying tenant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so all things that are going to go into there's a lot of things that can come up that need to be negotiated, right? It's not just about the price. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, Steve. Okay, so you guys are going to head over to page 5 in your participant guide. So here on page 5, it talks about the common points of negotiation. So they are, and so just as like we made that brainstorm list, all of those fell under price or terms, right? So like all of those other things were the terms of the contract. So all of those things there's all of those things. So it can be financial, they can be time-based, or they can be both. So all of those terms are all that brainstorming that we just came up with. So our list was the timing, right? The inspections, repairs. So repairs would be what? If you're looking at 3 categories as far as financial, time, financial, or both, what would repairs fall under?
Financial.
Those fall under financial. Yep, exactly. Sometimes those can fall under time as well, because you might have to negotiate if the repairs are going to be done before closing, or if maybe they're going to get a credit for the buyers to take care of them after closing. So repairs can actually fall under the both category. What about the dreaded personal property? Would that be financial, or would that be time, or both?
Both.
That could be both, yep, because there might be things in the house that the buyers just don't want, and there might be things in the house the sellers just don't want to move, right? Sometimes you'll see that, you know, a home is being sold as is, and sometimes depending on the situation, the sellers may not want to get rid of the stuff in the house. So you may have to negotiate on that.
You mean like with a piano or a pool table?
Yeah, those are the 2 items. Or an above ground pool.
But yes, right, exactly. Yep. What about tenants? What about negotiating tenants?
Both.
Yep, exactly, right? That could absolutely be both, exactly. So over on page 5, the common points of negotiation. So over on the right-hand side, the closing costs, right? So it lists some of those things. So closing costs are a big negotiation item. Most times the buyer pays their closing costs. However, they may not always have that cash on hand to bring to the closing table. So they may want the seller to give them a credit back at closing, right? The buyers are still paying for them in essence. And sometimes you have to also kind of make sure that you're explaining that to you're almost negotiating with your own side, because you need to explain to them, right, how things work. So in that case, the buyer is still paying the closing costs, yet they're asking the seller to alleviate them of having to bring that money to the table. So in that instance, your conversation to your buyer may be, right, we'll go back to the $300,000 example, and they want $5,000 in closing costs. In that case, your offer could be to the seller $305,000 with a $5,000 credit back at closing. So that way the seller is still getting the $300,000 purchase price. You're just inflating it by the amount of closing costs that you want back. And Deb and Steve, if you guys have anything to add, please just type in.
Jump in.
Okay,
I think,
good.
yeah, I mean, I think all of these things, this is why listening and talking to other agents and practicing and thinking these things through, because you're gonna get hit with these often, all the time. It's just part of the negotiating world. So we need to really think of all of the different ways, because sometimes you may think of something that no one else has, and that could in fact help the deal. Hey, why don't we try this? No one's thought of that. So the more knowledge you bring to the table, the better you'll be. That's sort of my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the last one that I want to bring up before we move on is earnest money, right? So anytime you are putting an offer in on a property, part of that transaction, part of that offer process is going to be how much earnest money is going to be put into escrow. Does everybody here know what an earnest money deposit is? Yeah, okay. Anybody not know? I can't see all of you on my screen. But the earnest money deposit, that is the sum of money that is going to be held in escrow, typically in the listing agent's brokerage's escrow account. It can be agreed upon that maybe it's going to sit in an attorney's account, but typically it's going to sit in the listing agent's escrow account, in their brokerage's escrow account. It's going to go towards closing. It's going to go towards the purchase price. What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of the earnest money deposit?
Show that you have a strong offer.
It does show you have a strong offer. What else? What's another purpose?
It's good faith.
Yep, it's a good faith deposit. So it shows that the buyer putting a little skin in the game. What other very important thing does that earnest deposit do? What does it do for your seller?
Covers in case the buyer backs out, it covers the expenses for putting off the market.
So yes, so in the event that the buyer breaks the contract for something other than a contingency that is outlaid in the contract, right? So if the buyer is just walks away and they don't have a valid reason, and a valid reason meaning one of the contingencies in the contract, inspections, financing, or any other contingency that they place on it. If they just simply decide to walk away, then the seller could have the right to keep that deposit as damages. So, and actually one of our, Melissa Delano, one of our attorneys, actually had come to our All Partners meeting last week and had talked to our agents about the importance of, even as if you're representing the buyer, in making sure you get a large enough deposit. And especially if you're the listing agent. So as a buyer's agent, you need to have that conversation with your buyers about what the purpose of the earnest money deposit is. and possibly what the seller is going to be looking for. And if you're representing the seller, you want to make sure that as the offers come in, that those earnest money deposits are strong enough and are high enough to be able to cover any damages that might incur if should something happen to the contract. Sometimes you'll see an offer come through and it'll have just $1,000 earnest money deposit on it. It's simply just not enough, right? The ideal scenario, it is always negotiable. Ideally, it's somewhere between, if you read it in the textbook, it's between 1% and 5% of the purchase price. Typically, as prices rise, as the price point rises, it's very common to see a 5% earnest money deposit. Right, especially if your buyers are putting down 20% on their mortgage. If they're doing a conventional mortgage and they're putting 20% down on their mortgage, right? Typically, they're going to have that cash on hand. That's the conversation to say, listen, if you put a 5% earnest money deposit on, it shows that your offer is very strong. It shows the seller that you have some skin in the game and that you're truly serious about purchasing the home. And if you're the listing agent getting that 5% deposit, you feel that your seller is going to be protected should something happen to that contract. So as both a buyer's representative and a listing agent, you have to be comfortable having that conversation for both sides and understanding what the purpose of it is and being able to convey that to a buyer so they understand the purpose as well. So who here has put an offer in on something already and how did that conversation go about earnest money? If anybody wants to share. Anyone? Anyone? So typically one thing that I have done in the past with especially new homeowners, like first-time homeowners who really they might not fully understand what that earnest money deposit is. So first of all, as agents, we need to really understand what it is and what its purpose is, and then being able to portray that over. So I had just an email template that I used that explained exactly what that earnest money was. So typically if I had somebody putting an offer in for the first time, especially a new first-time home buyer, I would send them this email and it would actually have everything that we needed to make an offer, right? We need, your full legal name. I need your current address. We need to know what price, what are we putting on the offer as the purchase price? What does the earnest money deposit look like? And then below it, I would explain what the earnest money was. I think I had a link out to an article out like from realtor.com or something that really had a good explanation on what an earnest money deposit was. So that way, when we had that conversation, they already had that knowledge behind them and they kind of already understood the purpose of it. And it made that conversation with them just go a little bit easier. And I always let them know it's totally negotiable. So we can offer $5,000 for the earnest money deposit. Yet the listing agent, the seller may come back and request more. It's going to be a negotiation point of the contract.
Exactly. Does anybody have any questions on that piece?
Okay. The last point that I'll drive home about that earnest money deposit, because it is a hot topic, is as a listing agent, if you are receiving offers, and especially if you are receiving multiple offers on a property, make sure you look to see what that earnest money deposit is, right? Because sometimes we just fixate on what the price is and when the closing is, and if they're doing inspections, but then make sure you also take a look at that earnest money deposit as well. You don't want to glaze over that and then your seller's agreed and you're only getting $1,000 or a couple thousand. Make sense? Okay. All right. So all right. So now we're going to go over to page 6.
Does everybody have their participant guide that they're following, or how are folks doing this? Everybody good? All right. Page 6, negotiating tips.
Okay, so do we can we break into groups for this? What do you guys think? Do you guys want to break into groups or you want to do it together? How many do we, how many we have on? We have 29
29.
in there. Okay, so yeah, so maybe we'll break into groups. Deb, can you do that for us?
Yeah, I can try. So we're
Okay.
gonna do breakout rooms and, we have our 6 negotiating tips. And I guess when we break into rooms, do we want to go into some role play here on kind of a quick pretend negotiation? What do you guys think?
So here's what, here you guys are going to do. You're going to read through the list of negotiating tips, which are on page 6 of your participant guide.
Yeah.
Okay, once you go through the tips, you're going to look back at page 5 and you're going to select one of the common points of negotiation, price, or one of those listed terms. You're going to write down your choice on the space provided on page 5. Then you're going to use what you've learned so far in the brainstorming list on how you might respond to that negotiation point. Okay, come up with at least 3 types of responses. So you guys can collectively pick one thing and then come up with 3 responses to that negotiation point. Does that make sense? And then we'll come back and we can share.
Any questions on that? All right, cool. All right, so I'll create the breakout rooms and you'll
Okay,
get
awesome.
your thing and we'll go from there. Good luck.
I'll give you guys just about like 7 minutes. I think that'll be perfect.
Okay, let's see if it works. We shall see. Oh, I don't think it's going to be 7, but. How's everybody doing? Did everybody get to a room? Everybody's joined. Yeah, it looks like everybody's doing pretty good.
Yeah, we've only got about 4 people that haven't joined a room yet.
Yeah, I can see. Well, it's okay.
Those are the ones that are cheating. They're not even
They're
there.
just, I know, it's funny. We say that every time. All right, I don't think it's gonna be 7 minutes either. I didn't know how to do the
Oh,
time.
I've got a timer running, so don't worry about it.
All right, I thought it was just gonna cancel it out. It says 2.39 seconds left. Well, sometimes you have to negotiate fast. Can you see my rooms or my things?
I see each room and the people that are in the room.
Oh, look at, you can move people too. Cool. Yep, 1, 2. It's only 2 that didn't jump. 3. Yeah.
Well, Hannah Call, that's the conference room in Newport.
Oh, yeah. Are you out of Newport?
I'm out of Cranston.
Okay. I just sent a referral down there to Kelly Schwendeman.
Oh, yeah, she's a fairly new agent.
Yeah, she was brand new. My friend's daughter.
Ah,
She
my
seemed-
favorite,
sounded like a nice
my
girl.
favorite bartender.
Yeah, I know. Hey, bartenders are great agents. They get crap done. And they don't sweat the small stuff. They're motivated. It's great. All right, so I'm seeing minute 30. And then maybe after the discussion, take a little break. I don't know. We'll let her decide.
Yeah.
Oh.
"51 seconds."
And then let me do the overview. Let's discuss. Okay, activity. Revisit the common points. Pick one of the points and write it below. Next, brainstorm all possible should respond. Uh-oh.
Yep, they're coming back now.
Yep. So we can close this 15 seconds. Oh, here we go. Open all, add room and create. Okay.
Okay, I was just gonna give my rendition of world peace and got knocked out of the.
I know, it was not 7 minutes. I guess I need to figure that one out.
Good, that was all good. It was all good.
Oh,
It's
I
just so abrupt. You can't ever time it right.
We'll change it. I see where I need it.
Okay, so who wants to share? Share what negotiation point you chose and what did you come up with for a way to negotiate through it?
Rhonda, I think we needed a little bit more time.
Okay.
We did. We hit one point. I was observing the group because I'm admin.
Okay.
And the point that we referred to was repairs.
Okay.
And then one came up, one of the participants came up with negotiating a lower price to compensate for the cost of repairs if a seller was adamant that they were not going to spend any money on the repairs.
Yep.
And then we got cut off.
Okay. So your response to that was that lower the purchase price. So therefore the buyers would take care of the repairs after closing to respond to the sellers not wanting to take on any of the repairs themselves.
Yeah, that was a great suggestion by Caitlin.
Okay.
What are the on that topic? What are the pros and cons of that particular scenario? Might be worth discussing.
Okay, yeah.
I think one on it, if about the repairs and after, some lenders may need the repairs done before.
Yep. What else?
I guess the pros on the seller side might be if they're up against a timeline, it allows them to move out faster without having to go through, you know, the timely process of making all the repairs.
Yep.
I also think that unless you have a professional come out and give you an estimate, you're going to end up spending 3 times what you had anticipated, and your buyer is not going to be happy.
And sometimes when a seller puts their property on the market, they pretty much are checked out and ready to sell. And so with making any repairs, I oftentimes think that they might not do it to, you know,
good standard.
The good standards. So because they just want to sell the property, so they'll do anything to satisfy that repair. But if the buyer does it, they'll ensure that it's, you know, it's done properly.
Yeah, and
hope.
one of the things that you can, you can do in that as well is just make sure, typically if the buyer, if the seller is going to handle those repairs, is you want to make sure that in your negotiation of the repair addendum, that you put that all the work is to be done by licensed professionals. And you get receipts for that. So that way, if there is a problem afterwards, you have somebody that you can go back to. Your buyers can call that electrician or they can call that plumber, and know that that professional is going to stand by their work. So that way it kind of mitigates a little bit of that issue of the do-it-yourself seller who really doesn't know what he's doing as far as fixing plumbing items. And then exactly like Tanisha said, then there's going to be a problem for the buyer afterwards on it. So if the seller is willing to take care of repairs, make sure that you are requesting that they are done by licensed professionals and that you are receiving receipts with contact information for anything done, so you can go back later if needed.
Okay.
Anything else? Did anybody else choose a different point of negotiation besides repair and price?
We did closing date, but we didn't get far because we were it ended, the joint session ended, but our scenarios, we agreed on 1 million from 1.3 million, and the buyer wanted to be in the house by Christmas time, like a couple days before Christmas, because it was a Christmas present for the kids.
Okay,
They
love it.
wanted to stay after Christmas because it was cheaper to move.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
So we didn't. That's when it said 45 seconds, you have to leave, but.
Okay. Well, you guys put a lot of thought into that scenario. I love it. So let's do that one together as a group before we move on. So we negotiated the price is 1 million off of 1.3. Buyers want to be in before Christmas.
Yeah, we had 5% earnest money down.
And 5% earnest money. And the sellers want to stay till after Christmas because the moving costs will be less expensive. So what would maybe be a response to that deal?
That we pay half the moving costs.
Love it. Yep. That absolutely is one thing that you could absolutely do, Anne Marie. That's awesome.
Has deals gone like sour because of moving dates, or is that like a common, or is that something that you can really work through?
Moving dates is something as agents that you always have to orchestrate, especially if you're working on a transaction where there's multiple transactions happening. So you may have somebody who is selling their home and also buying a home, and you may have a couple others stacked up on the other side. So moving dates and finagling, those sorts of things, it can be a very big negotiating point, and it typically takes a little bit of finagling on everybody's side.
Okay. All right.
Rhonda?
Yep.
I've got a client that owns a number of hotels, and they built one. It's quite new, and it's one of the suites where you get a little bit more room, a little kitchenette, and because of this demand in housing and gaps in time, they're 100% filled all the time. So I know it's not the best living space requirements that people need. But it's a good alternative that if people need it, a little gap time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great solution as well. That's a great solution. Love that. We had, I will share one transaction that I did a number of years ago where we had a huge discrepancy in moving a seller. I was representing a seller who was buying a home. The home she was buying, those sellers were buying another home. And then we had somebody that the buyer that was coming into my seller's house. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 parties involved in this transaction, and we were trying to orchestrate this closing date. And my sellers were going to end up with a week of no place to go due to some things that have happened with the repairs. It had become just a very was a transaction that had a lot of moving parts. And what we ended up being able to negotiate and getting a little creative on was the house that they were purchasing because they were going to have to live in a hotel for a week. So just like Tom is saying, but they needed to know what they were doing with all of their items, because having to store your items for an entire week could be very, very costly if you're storing them with the moving company, especially. And so what we were able to negotiate, I was able to negotiate with the listing agent of the home they were buying. So in that instance, I became buyer's agent and I was talking with the listing agent, and they were able to provide them space in the house to move their items in. So their items were at least in that house for the week, so everybody just kind of gave a little in order to accommodate. So sometimes you're gonna have to be totally outside of the box and be very solution oriented. And you might, in that case, it was on the sale of their home, yet we negotiated on the home they were buying in order to get everything where it needed to be.
And I just recently had something similar to that. Their attorney wouldn't allow us to put anything in the house.
Yeah.
But they allowed us to put 2 pods on the property.
Right. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And just like, Tom is saying that, sometimes you may be coming to a negotiation point on something, but yet it may open up it might open the next door of things that you have to tackle and that you need to work out. So, there's many situations where one item kind of turns into 4 items, and you just keep moving the ball. You just got to keep moving the ball down the road and just trying to handle all of those things to get everybody in a common place. Would that be able to transfer to onward?
Right.
Any questions? That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next section. Okay, great. So we are going to now talk about the 3 Ps approach. So you guys are going to turn to page 7 in your participant guide. We're going to talk about the 3 Ps approach to negotiation. So just as we are talking about today, negotiation, it's a skill. It's a skill that you have to practice, and it's a skill that, the more experience you get in it, the more you practice it, the better and more confident you're going to feel. And over time, you're going to be able to, perfect it. We're always learning, we're always growing, we can always get a little bit better, but you're going to get very close to being able to perfect your approach to negotiating. Does anybody here feel, even just in a little bit of stuff that we've covered so far this morning, do you feel like a little bit better about negotiating? Caitlin, how about you? Do you feel like you maybe have a couple of tools so far in your tool belt?
I think so. But I feel like it's hard for me to figure out how to leverage the scenarios with the little experience. But I did like our little breakout rooms and kind of discussing the pros and cons. Like Linda said, we discussed the repairs. So I think it was nice to see how other people thought about the scenarios, because it gave me different perspectives.
That's awesome. And through your board of realtors as well, there are some courses out there specifically on negotiating. I took a class way back, I think it was like in 2012 or 2013, called Certified Negotiation Expert. And it was a 2-day class. So there are other classes beyond this that you should always be, when we're taking our continuing education courses, definitely add a course in there on negotiation, even if you added it in, every cycle of when you're doing your continuing ed, because it keeps you sharp, right? And you're going to always be able to build on the skills that you already have.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the 3 Ps approach. And the first one is prepare. So in preparing to enter into the negotiation, the first thing you need to know is what your goal is, right? You need to know what you're negotiating for. And you need to know what that desired outcome is. Secondly, you need to know your client. What's the best way to get to know your client?
Questions?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Ask lots and lots of questions, right? That's the best way to get to know somebody and get to know what their goal is. Right. So you have to think ahead. Sometimes sometimes you're going to be able to almost kind of orchestrate the scenario in your brain as you get more and more experience under your belt. Sometimes like you're going to enter into a negotiation and you're going to already know what you're working towards. You know, you can say like, we're going to come in here. My thought is that they're going to probably maybe negotiate down to here. We're going to come up and eventually, and most, not, I won't say most transactions, but in a good amount of transactions, eventually you're going to meet in the middle, right? You're going to use that language. You know what, how about if we just meet in the middle and we come here? So sometimes you can already think ahead and kind of know where that negotiation may end up and may go, right? Doesn't mean that that's definitely where it's going to end up, but you've done it enough times where it's going to be easier for you to be able to think ahead a little bit and know what the next outcome may be, or maybe what the next response will be.
I agree.
You're going to set clear expectations. Right. So sometimes like if you're negotiating repairs, you want to set clear expectations to, first of all, you really want to understand what the goal is. You want to know what your client wants out of it. But you also need to set those clear expectations on, maybe you might be able to come back and say, this is kind of what the buyer may come back with and may ask for. Right. So we need to be on tap for that. Right. So that way we have clear expectations set of where that negotiation may go, and being able to prepare your client for what the response may be.
Rhonda, sometimes on the inspections, some of the needed repairs can be safety issues, which brings, it's much easier when it's a safety issue than, a loose door handle.
Exactly. And having that conversation up, that's perfect, Tom, because having that conversation up front with your sellers on what you expect before the repair addendum is received by you, right? But to set clear expectations, okay, we're having a home inspection today. Typically a buyer is going to ask for safety items, structural items, and they may ask for some cosmetic items or for some little things, right? And so now we're going to have to negotiate and go back with, listen, we'll handle these things, but not these, right? But setting those clear expectations also, that if it is safety or it is structural, it might be something that we might need to handle, or mechanical, right? If the septic failed, if you lose your buyers, right? If the septic failed and the seller says, I am not fixing the septic, well, you can't live in the house with a bad septic. So even if you let your buyers walk, you are probably going to have to fix that septic anyways. Right?
Yeah.
So we might want to negotiate on that point. Next up is to be informed, right? So be as informed as you can. If you be informed, if the septic failed, already have in your mind what a new septic might cost, right? Reach out to a septic company and talk with them. If the water came back and there's some deficiencies in the quality of the water, talk to the water company and already know what the system is going to cost to put in. So that way, when you are negotiating, when you're talking to your client and setting expectations with them, you're able to give them some information. You're informed and you're able to give them some information. I have a couple of contractors that I'm very close with, and if something comes up in an inspection and I don't know what it's going to cost to fix it, I will reach out to that contractor and say, hey, this just came up in an inspection. I'm going to send you the picture. Can you tell me what it is? And can you tell me ballpark of what it might cost to fix? Because sometimes, your client might be thinking it's going to be a $5,000 fix and it's, $1,200, right? It's like, really, it's not, right? So you want to make sure that you're informed. Obey the laws, something very important. Always obey the law.
Yep.
And I love this last one. Know the documents inside and out.
Yep. Practice that. Make sure you understand the contract to purchase, whatever state you're in. In Mass, we do contract to purchase, then we move to purchase and sale. New Hampshire just goes direct to purchase and sale. Know don't just fill in the blanks. Understand what those sentences mean. you know, wearing masks with lead paint. You know, we have that form. It's, you know, for those of you in masks, you know, that form is really, for some reason, very hard for people to fill out. And I think it's simply because they don't read it. So let's be the next level and make sure we understand our contracts really, really well. And I'm sure every market center has their contracts, buyer forms, class and seller forms. Make sure you get into those and do them more than once. Just because you've done them once, let's do them again. That's my speech on documents.
No, I love it. Absolutely. And there's usually, I mean, even through the board, there's forms classes through your market center. You're probably hosting some forms classes through the productivity program.
Yep.
And if you don't understand a form, if you're not sure the language of it, if you have a mentor, they're a great person to ask, or again, somebody on your leadership team, whether it's the productivity coach, it's the team leader. If you don't understand something, just ask for some clarification in that clause.
Right.
Especially with forms, because they're legal documents. And if you have your client sign a form and you misunderstood it, guess who's paying?
Right.
So, you know, if you ever have I mean, don't sign a form until you know exactly what it says and exactly what it's for. Because otherwise, you know, you can get into a lot of trouble if you're using if something's filled out incorrectly, or if you're using the wrong form.
Right.
Okay. So asking questions is the key to gaining information to, hold on here.
Yep, that's $25.
Let me get rid of that. Let's see, am I back? There we are. I keep saying I need to disconnect that from ringing on my computer. Okay, so open-ended questions, right? Let's talk about the difference between an open-ended questions and a closed-ended questions, because as we talked about, asking questions is so important for most. It's important to get to know our client, get to know what the goal is asking questions. So open-ended questions, those are questions that have an unlimited response. So things like, what additional information should I know? If you're Anne Marie in your example and talking about that closing date on that home, right? What is important about closing before Christmas? And I know in that scenario, they had said, oh, it's a Christmas present for our kids, right? But really but that's information that you can go back and negotiate with to the listing agent, right? And say, this is why they want to close early. And by having that story and having that reason, then that might help that seller to be like, oh, that's awesome. So, okay, let's see what we can do to make that happen. Right? So by asking those like, not just we want to close in 30 days, but why? Like, why is that so important to you to close in 30 days? And questions like, how do you feel about that? Where it really just gets that conversation and it continues that conversation. And by asking open-ended questions, it's going to open the door for you to ask even more questions and just continue to dive deeper. So that way you fully understand. And in that process, your clients will feel so they'll feel so well cared for, and they're going to just feel like you really care about truly what they are looking for and what they want to accomplish. And then close-ended questions. Those are questions that have a specific response. Yes, no, one word, right? Do you have to sell your home by a specific date? Yes, by December 31st. Okay, great. Let me write that down. Right? Your next question should be, why is that so important to you? What is important to you about by closing by December 31st? Do you have any offers? So sometimes as a buyer's agent, if right now everything's multiple, not everything, most things are multiple offers right now, right? It's very important to ask the question, do you have any other offers currently? Now they're going to say yes or no. You could say, how many? How many offers do you mind sharing? How many offers do you have? Now, obviously they can't tell you the specifics of those offers, right? So you need to be very careful on that, but yet you can ask them if they have any and how many do you have? Are you calling for a highest and best deadline? Right, that's something that's going to be very important for your buyer to know, right? When do we have to have an offer in by? The next one, what is the bottom line price you would consider? Right, that's a great one for your sellers to know what their bottom line is. Right, what is your bottom line? Right, and from there you can go in again. Why is that important to you? Why is it important to you to have that? Because it may be that they want to go and purchase another property, or, you know, with that money, they can then put some money towards a college fund for their grandchildren, right? So just by asking that, you're going to get the answer, but dig a little bit deeper, right? And really start to understand what their motivation is, because that's going to help you on the other side. Any questions? Any ahas? Does anybody have any ahas of what we've covered so far? Okay, Steve, you can go to the next slide. Oh, hold on. I'm bringing off the hook. As soon as you're in a meeting, everybody wants to talk to you.
Learn.
Okay, so these are a couple of great openings to questions, right? We already talked about why is this important to you, but what about the first one? What would happen if? Right? What would happen if we didn't close by December 31st? Right? These questions they're gonna help you anticipate what the next step of the negotiation is. What would happen if, right, knowing that their bottom line is 300,000, what would happen if you got an offer for 295? Right? Because sometimes the seller will draw that line in the sand, right? But yet, is that $5,000, right? You need to know what that $5,000 is going to do for them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you also have to be able to then ask that question, because maybe that $5,000, okay, right? So we have an offer for 295, your bottom line is 300. If we didn't sell, so if we let this buyer go, this is a good question. If you let this buyer go and we don't get another offer for the next 3 months, are you going to wish you took the offer for 295? Right? Because over the course of the next 3 months, you still got to pay taxes, you still got to pay your mortgage payment, right? And since sometimes, you know, a seller, they don't know what they don't know. And so by asking questions, they might say, oh, yeah, probably. I'll probably then wish I did take that offer for 295. Okay. So, right, your best offer is always the one in front of you. And as a negotiator and as their representative, I always say, I just want to exhaust all options on this offer before we let it go. Right? It may or may not work. And I'm not asking you to accept anything that is not right for you, but yet let's see if we can at all possible exhaust all the options to find common ground with this offer. And if we can't, then we move forward. But I want to make sure that I'm asking enough questions of you and that you're really thinking about those answers. So if we do let this offer go and we don't get another offer for 3 months, that you're not like, I wish I took that. I should have just taken that offer at 295, right? They may still have decided to let that offer go, but yet if we're asking them the right questions to figure out really what they truly want and truly understanding their motivation, they may come to the realization that that might be the best offer that they should take right now.
Exactly. And that's what the topic is here. It says prepare and learn. So as a negotiator, the more we understand and the more we learn about the situation, the better that we can move forward. And it also helps the seller almost learn some of their decisions. They get some clarity often when you ask some of these questions. It makes the other, sellers get very emotional sometimes, and some of this questioning can help it be, more businesslike, if you come at it in that sort of way, that can be very helpful. So learning and going through different scenarios, I think as a negotiator can be a very, very good point. And a super set that we all, sort of develop as we move forward. Any questions on that sort of part about asking a lot of, anticipating the next steps?
Okay, good. All right, Steve, we're gonna go to the next slide. We're gonna have you guys do, an activity here. So go to page 9 of your participant guide. And here's the scenario, and then we'll have Deb pop everybody back into Rooms again. So you are representing a single buyer. Your client is renting her present property. So she's renting currently. Like any first-time buyer, she is looking to you to guide her through the process. The asking price for the home she really loves is $175,000. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak, is listed as is, and is currently priced. Correctly priced, sorry, is correctly priced. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible since she has a number of student loans to pay off. She plans to write an offer for $155,000, and there has been quite a bit of activity on the listing. So Deb's gonna pop you guys into rooms. And we're gonna give you guys, and Deb, you can put like, maybe like make a few more people in each room so that way they can super kind of talk about it.
Okay.
And we're gonna give you guys like 20 minutes, so that way you have enough time. 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll come back here. So come up with your as a group, 4 clarifying questions to ask the seller, or I'm sorry, ask the buyer. And then let's talk about your ahas.
All right, so you want it in for 20 minutes? Am I doing this right?
Yep.
All right, 20 minutes. Okay, good. Hopefully it works. Hold on. Okay, good. All right, open all rooms. Oh. Well. I am going to stay up for a bit and return calls. I'm going to stay up.
Deb, why do we have 3 people that aren't assigned?
Everybody should be assigned. I just said assign everybody.
Yeah, it's got Ashley, Jill, and Sabrina are all tagged as unassigned.
That's weird. Unassigned. How do I? Is it because they didn't? Oh, hold on. I'll just stick them somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't know you could do that. I wonder if it's because they didn't jump on first. And I really think people might want a break. I know.
Yeah.
But it's best after the thing, maybe after the discussion, we, say that. That's might have been what happened last time. Right, Jill joined, that's good. I should move somebody. All right, yeah, that's gonna be 20 minutes. So I'm gonna jump out. I gotta make 2 calls.
Okay, I'll be here in case anyone pops in with a question.
Awesome, thanks. Oop, come on, thing.
Hi, can anyone pop me back into room 3? My computer died, so I got booted.
Who the heck is everybody? Did we lose some people?
I don't think they're back yet from the
Oh, all
room.
right. Okay. All right. Let's see, what do we got here in my rooms? Oh, yeah, 10 seconds.
Perfect timing.
Moving along here pretty good. How much we got left?
Exactly.
This here.
Okay, everybody's getting back. I feel like I have my papers everywhere here. I'll try to get them all back in the right order. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Everybody do.
So yeah, let's somebody share what we read the scenario. So let's share what your clarifying questions were to ask the client. So we're all working on the same scenario. So who wants to share one of their clarifying questions?
One clarifying question?
Yeah, share one of your
Just one?
clarifying questions.
Okay, why is it so important for you to come in at 1:55?
Okay, love that. Why is it so important for you to come in at 1:55?
Right.
Anybody else?
Steve actually came into our room and helped us out a little bit and brought up a great question. How long has it been on the market?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Clarifying questions. What do we have?
We had discussed finding out what the true value of the house might be completed to determine if it's worth what it's worth.
Okay.
Love that.
Getting local comps and the extent of roof damage. If the roof is damaged, is there I've been into somewhere there's buckling floors and the ceiling is falling down and mold is throughout the whole building. So depends on the extent of the roof leak.
Yeah, so like what is the extent of right?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And then an option could be, if there wasn't a lot of activity on it, but a 203K loan could work, where you can get construction repair dollars attached to the mortgage amount that you can get it fixed. That came up after our little breakout, so I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Love that. And so, right, so one of those questions could be to the buyer, right? Are you open to exploring a 203 rehabilitation loan, construction loan, right?
And also keep it in mind your client's finances. If they're in a rent now and they have 6 months left on a lease, they have to keep in mind that they have that obligation as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So she wants to offer 155. What other clarifying questions might we ask?
How much does she have to put down?
Yeah.
Or is it cash?
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
we had another question, going into the specifics of what's the most that she's comfortable paying per month? Because it seems like she's more focused on keeping her monthly payments down.
Mhm.
And
Love
instead
that.
of just asking like what's the most you're willing to offer on the house, you can play more around, play with the monthly payment a little bit more than
Oh, yeah.
top dollar.
Love that, Alexander. Yeah,
Good one.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You would still have to
Sometimes-
you still have to factor in repair costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. Love that. Okay, anybody else? Edwina?
Yes, I was thinking maybe the location is very helpful to her where the home is. And
Yep.
that may be a defining, reason.
Absolutely, right? So like uncovering what her motivation, it says that the house she really loves is 175,000. So understanding what she really loves about that house.
Right.
Right, and that brings up a good point, because sometimes, right, that home may be in a location that is asking for a little bit more of a premium, right? Or it might be a home that is maybe on a main road someplace where that may command a little bit of a lower price, right? So understanding what she loves about the house, the convenience of it, the location of it, all of those are just going to build on each other as you try to come up with the negotiation terms for her. Tom, are you going to add something?
Yeah, I've seen some really low price things, and I do a Google Earth on it, and there's a railroad track running behind it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. That's a great point. And some of those things are just things that, you will like add into what if one of your buyer comes back and wants to know more about a property, you're going to come up with things like, just like that you're going to do. You're going to send them, you're going to look it up, you're going to send them disclosures, you're going to look at the history, see how long it's been on the market, if it's ever been under contract. You might call the listing agent. Is it still available? Have you had any offers? Do you have any offers currently? Do the Google Earth. So you kind of get the lay of the land and know if there's anything like that. The railroad tracks are behind it, or maybe, so there's another deficiency that's running behind it.
Right, could be a highway also.
Could be the highway, exactly,
Yeah.
right? And then that way, when you have that conversation with them, you now have all of this, right? We had said that one of the things is to be informed. Now you're informed on all of those items to be able to have that conversation and start asking her questions about why it's important to her. Stephen, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to add that we talked a bit about making sure that she has the means and connections to make the repairs after she does put in an offer like this. Like, do you know contractors? Do you have the money for the repairs? Or you guys just talked about getting a loan too. So.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Nowhere in that scenario did it say that she was actually pre-approved. So, right. So that's an important question too, to understand if she has already spoken with a lender, if she is pre-approved, where that money's coming from. Exactly.
And we did say too, like, do you know, sometimes the lenders will ask for inspections and it has to be fixed for the loan to go through.
Depending on what it is and what the financing is. Yes, right. So especially for government-backed mortgages like an FHA or a VA, there are certain things that that need to be up to standard with the house.
Did anybody ask her any what ifs?
The first one that comes to that mind, right, is what if the seller won't accept an offer of 155? Anita?
The pre-approval the agent should have a knowledge of the pre-approval. Without that, we don't take shopping.
Yeah, you should always, that's one of the first questions, absolutely, that you should ask, is if they've already spoken with the lender and if they are pre-approved. You can't submit an offer if they are obtaining a mortgage. You can't submit an offer without that pre-approval. Yes.
And since there are multiple offers, because there's a lot of activity, what if you put a low offer and she loses the offer? That was one question we thought.
Yeah, what if?
Mhm. Yep, exactly.
You have to keep in mind, maybe the value is 150 or 155, and it was
Right.
even, even though it's a low price, it could have been an exaggerated low price. So it could still have bearings.
Absolutely, right, absolutely. That's why it's important to know, right, if it's been sitting on the market, how long it's been on the market, if it's ever been under contract before. Sometimes if you look at the history, of the property in the MLS system, you might find out that it went under contract 3 times already and it fell apart each time, right? And so then again, to be informed, you might call that listing agent and say, hey, notice it went under contract on 3 different occasions and it keeps bouncing back on the market. Why are buyers backing out of this property, right?
Right. Septic tank.
Yeah, exactly. Be informed.
Right.
Okay, all right, I think we can move forward unless
Yeah.
anybody has anything else that they
Yeah.
want to add. That was great. Hopefully that kind of opened up your thought process a little bit onto the types of conversations, the questions to ask, and all of those sorts of things as you're getting ready, right? That was all in the prepare, right? You're preparing for the offer. Now we're going to talk about present. So now we've gotten all of our information, we've asked all of our questions. We understand what our client wants from us and what their goal is, right? The offer is now written, we put it in writing. Remember, offers are always done in writing. Now we're ready to present the offer. So in the first section here, let's learn about presenting the offer. So the first thing is to pay attention to verbal or nonverbal cues. Now, these days, a lot of times this is going to be done electronically. It's going to be done through email. You should be in the habit is if you send an offer by email, it's always also a good idea to pick up the phone as well and let that agent know that you just sent an offer in. Or if you are, right, if you're the buyer's agent and you're sending it to the listing agent, if you're the listing agent receiving it and you're going to call your seller and tell them about the offer that you just received, right? You can email it to them so that way they have it in writing and can review it, but also to pick up the phone and call them and talk with them about it and pick up those verbal cues. Sometimes now we're doing things on Zoom. So you might have sit down on a Zoom call with your seller to go over the offer. That way you can kind of pick up on their expressions, their body language a little bit to understand truly how they feel about the offer. If you're presenting the offer to the buyer's agent or to the listing agent as the buyer's agent, once you give them your offer and you're talking to them about it, listen, I'm working with Sarah and we're going to offer 155,000. I've sent everything to your email. Basically, she would like to offer 155,000. She's getting a mortgage for X amount. We'd like to close in 45 days and we'd like the seller to fix the roof before closing. Once you give the offer, stop talking. Okay, we tend to, as humans, we don't like quiet. We don't like quiet. And so we feel like we just got to keep talking in there. She's going to offer her 155 because of this and because this, it has been on the market a long time. Da, 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 da. Present your offer and then just stop talking. And give the other party the chance to come back and get their initial reaction to the offer. Sometimes awkward silence is your friend.
Let the
on Zoom, it's painful. Don't do it to the presenter on Zoom.
let the silence do the heavy lifting.
That's right.
And listen.
And then, right, exactly, Deb, right? The next step, then listen carefully to what is important to the other party. So that listing agent might say to you, 155,000, God, that's so low, right? Right? Listen. Don't you try to all of a sudden start talking, yeah, but, like just listen and let them tell you what's important to the other side. Now, a lot of times they still have to go and present your offer. So you may not get the feedback. You may not get it real time like this, right?
Right.
The listing agent may just say, hey, thank you very much for the offer. I'll absolutely, it's a little low, but let me get it to the seller and then I'll be back to you shortly. And in this day and age, a lot of things sometimes do happen through email, which you then you really can't tell tone. You don't really, right? So sometimes, a lot of times we're doing this even through text, right? Sometimes you'll get a text message back that says, hey, I talked to the seller. The seller says, they can't accept 155,000 yet. They would be agreeable to 170, right? Don't be afraid though to pick up the phone and have that pick up the phone and call them. Right. And just have that collaborative discussion and say, listen, okay, great. Listen, they might give you more clues as to why the seller is coming back with that.
Well, also on occasions, properties like this are in an estate and the turnaround time is a little bit longer, but in the listing, typically it mentions about probate or other things. So,
that's right.
Look for that in agent comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, as buyer's agents, Tom, that's a great point. A lot of times there is extra, look in the showing instructions, because a lot of times they might put in there as well, stuff like that. They might not put it in the actual description, but they might put it down in the showing instructions. So make sure you read both places. They may already have a highest and best date solidified. So make sure and they would typically put that in the showing instructions. If it's seller to find suitable housing, that typically is in the description. So exactly, you might want to just make sure that you know everything that you can find out before heading in. And if it is in probate or it is in an estate, there might be multiple siblings involved or multiple people involved in selling the home. So it may take 3 or 4 days for them to get back to you. However, the listing agent should communicate that to you. Hey, thanks for your offer. I have to get to 5 siblings, so it might take me a couple of days to get back to you. So the next point is just to stay calm and relaxed. It's just a conversation, right? Remember we talked about keeping yourself detached from the outcome of it a little bit. It's just a conversation. So stay calm, right? Whatever they come back and tell you, even if they come back and say, the seller said, no way, they're flat out rejecting 155,000. They're not even a counter. They're so insulted. They're not even going to counter offer, right? We've all been there, right? Stay calm and just say, oh, I'm so sorry. It was not our intent to insult the seller by any means. After doing our due diligence, this is where the buyer felt comfortable placing an offer. Let me go back and talk with them. I'll absolutely let them know how the seller feels about it. And I'll let you know if maybe we would like to come back with a higher offer. Right? It's not our place to be like, what the heck is the seller thinking? It's been on the property. It's been under contract 3 times. He should take this offer and run to the bank with it. Right? We are not going to say that. You might be thinking it. Don't say it.
Right.
Calm. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me get back with the buyer. Let me let her know that this is what the seller feels. I'll get back to you if we'd like to increase our offer. Any questions so far on that?
Rhonda, has your group used the escalation clause at all?
Yes, escalation clauses are quite common these days. So yes, I don't know about Deb in Massachusetts, are escalation clauses being used as well?
They were crazy for a while until they started to get a little abused. And then a lot of list agents were writing in the comments, no escalation clauses, please. No escalation clauses and no personal letters of introduction. Lawsuits waiting to happen on that one. So that was we kind of drew the line on that as well. But I think they're very useful in the right market, and if done carefully. Not everybody really understands how they work, so you have to really understand how they work in order to really effectively use them. So I have a question though, Rhonda, on our lady here. Your list agent says, hey, they think it's crazy, you're coming in at that low price. How do you now, as we move forward in the discussion, how do we go back to our buyer? I don't know if that's part of the program, but how are we going to present this back to the buyer in a professional manner? You know, listening more than talking, you know, what's the script on that really? Or maybe some of the students can say, what do you think? How do we proceed now when we talk to the buyer?
Yeah, it's great.
I think you have to determine the after repair value of the house and supply them with comps so they can make a decision if it's truly a good value.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that will definitely go into it. So you might go back to you would go back to your buyer and say, you know, hey Deb, I just heard back from the listing agent on 123 Main Street, and the seller has rejected our offer. They have not supplied us back with a counter offer. They felt our offer was very low. And again, this is where, as the agent, this is where we are buffers, right? We are the buffer to all of the emotion. So as for the seller just got this offer on his property that he felt was very low, and he was extremely insulted. So now the listing agent may come back to me and just say, hey, Rhonda, just to let you know, professional to professional, you know, the seller was really insulted by the offer. He's not even gonna counter. That's okay, right? We're all gonna remain calm in that. Okay.
Yep.
But when I go back to the buyer, I'm not going to bring that emotion into it and necessarily say to her, oh my God, he was so insulted. He was really pissed that we presented that offer. I'm just gonna say, listen, the seller just felt our offer was extremely low, and they have opted to not even give us a counter offer back. I've let the agent know that we're going to revisit, and as Tom said, you know, why don't we take a look at what this property is going to take to fix it up and what it's going to be worth on the other side, and see if there's any room in that price where perhaps you might be inclined to feel comfortable to raise your offer up a little bit. Right? And so now that is just, you're coming back, you're giving them the information that was given to you. However, you don't have to tell them that the seller's mad about it. You just need to tell them that the seller didn't offer you a counter back, right? So now their ego's not in it, that they're like, well, right now they're mad at the seller right now, because when that happens, like everything just goes to, you know, down the river. So, and then that opens the door to say, let's do our research and let's kind of see what we can do on the other side. And perhaps it might be worth it for you to raise your offer a little, and then we can go back with another offer. And I let the listing agent know that if we determined we would like to raise our offer, that I would absolutely get back in touch with him.
Right. Any questions on that, guys? What are you thinking about? You're going to be right in the throes of this kind of a discussion. What other thoughts do you guys have? Raise your hand or just let us know.
Yes, Edwina.
What is that escalation that you were talking about?
Sure, I can explain that in a little nutshell on that. So an escalation clause is when you attach an escalation clause to your offer. So in this case, in this example, Sarah, as I've named her, Sarah might have put an offer in for $155,000. And she might apply an escalation clause to that, which would say that she was willing. So an escalation clause comes into place if there are multiple offers on the property. So say this home that she's putting an offer in, say it had 3 offers. When you called the listing agent and said, do you have any offers? And they said, yeah, I have 3 offers on it. Okay, great. So we're going to write our offer. Sarah's going to say, I'm going to write an offer for $155,000. Yet I'm going to apply an escalation clause to that, which says that I'm willing to pay $1,000 more than any other offer presented, up to a max purchase price of $165,000. So I'm offering $155,000, yet I'm willing to go up to $165,000 should you have any other offers that are above $155,000, and I'll go $1,000 above them. So that means if they had a second offer for $160,000, then Sarah's going to pay $161,000 because she's going to pay $1,000 more as long as it's under $165,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So they become very useful, and you can play with those numbers. You can say, I mean, nowadays with all the multiple offers, a lot of buyers are making that increment amount a little bit higher. You know, they might say, I'm going to pay 5,000 more than anybody else up to a max of X, right? Because then it really kind of like the seller's like, oh, geez, right? I'm going to get another 5,000. My next offer is 160. I'm going to get 165 for it because of that escalation clause. So they can become a useful tool, but just like Deb says, if you have 10 offers on a property and everybody has an escalation clause, it can get confusing very quickly. And the escalation clause it only has to do with the price. It doesn't have to do with any other terms. It's only on the price of the property. So it can, all of a sudden it can get very confusing as to who actually is the highest offer. You know, so you have to just be careful of that.
Yeah.
But they do come into play. You know, we sold a house, and this is where the agent did not ask a lot of questions. And in my opinion, you know, it was kind of like at the detriment to her buyer, because there was a house that we had listed on the market. We did not have any other offers on the property. We did not have any offers on the property. She had reached out and said, she said, do you have a highest and best deadline for receiving offers? Which we did not. We didn't have any offers on the house. And so we said, no, we don't. At this time, it had just come on the market. We just finished our open house. I said, no, at this time, we do not have a highest and best deadline. She never asked me if I had any offers. If she did, I would have said no, but she didn't ask me that.
Wow.
They put an offer in. She did not use an escalation clause. They put an offer in for $30,000 over the asking price.
Oh,
30,000 over the asking price with no appraisal on it either. I mean, like I was completely like, what? But of course, you know, the seller was happy and we took the offer, but she did not ask any questions. Like if she had asked if I had any offers, at least if she did an escalation clause, her seller would have saved himself $30,000 because we would have sold at asking price. The seller would have been very happy to take an asking price offer. So like that's, you know, so as far as like the negotiation goes, she did not negotiate for her client at all. Right. In her mind's eye, this is a really, you know, it's a busy market with multiple offers and whatnot. And she probably thought like, you know what, let's just go in, let's just get in there above everybody else, except she didn't ask any questions. There wasn't anybody else in the deal. And she didn't protect her client by at least using the escalation clause, which would have he would have only had to spend the asking price. Or if we did have two offers and one was 5,000 higher, you know, he would have maybe paid an additional $5,000 or $6,000 for the property versus just coming right in with a $30,000 over asking offer. So make sure that there's nothing wrong with you asking questions. In the prepare part, are there any offers on the property? How many offers do you have? Do you have a highest and best deadline? And another question that you can ask, which is totally okay to ask, is there anything that is super important to your seller that we should know about as we write our offer? Right? Maybe they have to be out in 30 days. Right? If you don't ask that question and you don't know that, and you're just like, oh, I'm going to put a 45-day close in there because that's what's typical. But yet the other buyer agent asked that question and their offer was identical to yours, except they had a closing date that was within 30 days and the seller took their offer because of that term. So don't be afraid to ask, is there anything that's super important to your seller that you can tell me as we prepare to write this offer?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
May I ask a question?
Yeah,
please.
If you put it below offer and they just decide not to respond, can you go back again with a higher offer? Can you make another offer? Okay.
Yeah.
You're not
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the last couple of points here is focus on your customers' needs. Always focus on your customers. Your customers come first and you are serving their best interest, and give your offer the best chance, right? And you're going to give your offer the best chance by asking questions, asking what's important to the seller, asking what's important to your buyer, right? Having conversations with your buyer where they say, I only want to put down 1,000 earnest money. And you're going to say, you know what, that's really not a good idea. That's not a good idea. And here's why. We really want your offer to stand out and be a strong offer. So really, we need to put down a larger earnest money deposit.
Right.
Now, one thing, right, and this is a very hot topic right now, is there's a lot of buyers out there who are waiving inspections on properties. Right. And as an agent, I don't ever suggest that to any of my buyers, right? Unless there was an inspection that was just done recently and I have that report in hand. And even then, in that case, I'll give that report to the buyers, maybe ask if they can get in touch with the inspector to have a conversation about the house. But it's a very, very tricky thing. And a lot of people are doing it, yet you have to have that conversation with them. Because they might say, you know what, we're just going to waive inspections. Okay, like I understand that. And there may be the other offers may be waiving inspections. So I totally get that. Yet you have to be prepared then if you purchase this house and there's something wrong with it, that you're going to be able to fix it. Because you can't, there are no guarantees that, yeah, the sellers bought the house a year ago and we just put an offer on something. The sellers bought the house a year ago and they were now selling it because they wanted to move back to another town, the town they came from. And there was multiple offers. And they offered up the home inspection report. I think they bought it a year and a half ago. They offered up the home inspection report and also the list of items they fixed, which was awesome, except it's been a year and a half. So usually you don't get a year and a half notice if the furnace is going to break or right. So you just want to be careful in saying, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it was done a year and a half ago. Just you can waive those inspections because things can still come up. So you have to be prepared for that. So again, in negotiating, right, what you might say is, let's not waive inspections yet. We can put language in there that says that they are for informational purposes only. And if there is, and the only things that they might ask for is an item that has at least a $5,000 price tag on it. Right. So that means that tells the seller, we're not going to be picky about GFCIs. We're not going to be picky about, you know, $100 fix here, rip screen or any of those things. Yet if it's a substantial thing, like the furnace is no longer working or something substantial, then we might come back to the negotiation table. Your offer is still not going to be strong as somebody who's waiving them altogether. But yet you also, at the same time, you have to focus on your customers' needs and you also have to represent them. Now, if they come back and say, listen, we're good, we totally want to waive inspections, that's totally up to them. But yet you just want to make sure you're not the person pushing them to do that.
All right. Any questions on that, guys?
I have one. I'm just curious about the offers and stuff. Has anyone ever had it where the seller was like totally like so offended that they didn't want to even deal with the person that like put in that offer?
No, I don't think so. I mean, typically the listing agent might just come back and say, you know, you're gonna have to, you know, do better than that, or you're gonna have to raise your offer, you know, raise your offer up. That doesn't typically happen, as long as, right, and this is where you come in as that buyer's agent, as long as you are, you know, presenting the offer in a fair, calm, professional way. You know, unless it's so low and insulting to the point where you're just kind of like, oh, I don't really want to write this offer up, like it's totally not valid. I mean, that's the other thing, right? Is you also want to educate your client. So say in the case of our buyer here, you know, she decided that she wanted to offer, you know, $90,000 on the price of the house. Right. If that is not at the value of the home, then as her representative, because right, what the bottom thing here says, give your offer the best chance, right? That's not giving your offer the best chance, right? Listen, I understand that you only want to spend $90,000 on a home. However, this home is probably the market value of it, you know, definitely is around $160,000. That offer $90,000, in that case, that's going to be so insulting to the seller. They may not ever want to deal with you again. So I'm going to caution you.
Right.
I will write the offer up if you want me to. However, I'm going to caution you that probably is not going to go anywhere. It's just going to be a waste of your time to write that offer.
Right. And sometimes you have to say the seller is not going to, if you make a good faith offer, you will get a good faith response. You know, a seller may not respond favorably to that. And that kind of educates the buyer a little bit like, oh, yeah, you're right. That why would they take me seriously? Something else to think about.
Rhonda, also, some people are, pricing things over asking.
Yep.
And you may get it, but your lender may not approve of it.
Another whole thing.
Yeah, there's the three things that need to come, three things need to happen in order for a home to sell. And that is that the seller has to agree to the price, the buyer has to be agreeable to the price, and if there is a mortgage, the bank has to be agreeable to the price.
Right.
Right, those three things need to come together. Now, if it's cash, then and there's no appraisal, then you're taking that out of the equation, right? Then you just need the two. But if there is a mortgage, all three of those things need to come together in order for that property to move forward to the closing table. And that's something to let your sellers know about when you're negotiating with them on what the purchase price or what the listing price is going to be, right? So you're also going to negotiate when you're sitting down in a listing presentation, talking about maybe what the data supports as a listing price and what your seller thinks should be the listing price, right? So it's also about educating them in that and just say, okay, that's great. I don't want you to leave up so much as a penny on the table. However, these three things if our buyer has a mortgage, three things need to happen, right? You have to be agreeable, buyer has to be agreeable, and the bank has to be agreeable. Right. So we can go on to the next slide unless anybody has any further questions on that. Okay, so ask what and how questions. So buyer wants to close in 60 days, the seller wants to close in 30 days, right? So here's our scenario. So you guys are going to turn to page 11 in your participant guide. Let's try to find page 11 here. I have like pages everywhere here. Okay, do you guys have page 11? I'm like very unorganized here. Okay. So buyer wants to close in 60 days, seller wants to close in 30. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're requesting a 30-day closing. What is important to you about closing in 30 days? And again, it kind of sets here, if your client becomes defensive, you would explain to them. My goal is to let the buyer know why this is important to you. And we had talked about this in the beginning. Somebody had said it, maybe was it Tom or was Alexander? Somebody had said, it's important to understand what the other side is looking for as well. So put yourself in the shoes, right? Empathy, put yourself in the shoes of the other person in the negotiation as well, right? And bring those parties together.
But you have to keep in mind timelines also. So, how long will it take for an appraiser to get out there? Title searches.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
they have to be realistic numbers. Whether you could come into agreement, it still has to be realistic.
Correct.
Exactly. And we have printing 2 of the participant guide, so just went and got it off the printer, so now I can be on the same page as you guys. Okay. We're on page 12, right?
Yep.
Okay. So it says, choose a partner and select who will play the part of the buyer and who will play the part of the listing agent. So we can just do this together in this one room.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so somebody raise your hand. Who wants to be the buyer agent? Who wants to be the listing agent? I have any volunteers?
Hey, how are you?
Anyone going once? Okay, Tanisha, awesome.
All right.
Tanisha, would you like to be the buyer's agent or the listing agent? Oh, you're on mute, hon.
Either one is fine.
Okay, so you, all right, so you be the buyer's agent. Your role is down there below. So your buyers are making an offer of $340,000 for the house. They have been pre-approved. The buyers would like to close in the shortest possible time since they are moving from out of state and they need a home for their family. Since they are leaving their appliances in their current home, they would also like to include they would also like all of the appliances included. Okay, who wants to be the listing agent?
Come on, guys.
Anyone? Listing agent, listing agent? All right, I will be the listing agent with you, Tanisha, so we'll do this together. Okay, so listing agent role. Your sellers have raised their family in the house that you are selling and have many friends and family in the area. Since their children are now grown, they no longer need the amount of space the current home provides and have purchased a home in Florida. They would like to give all appliances to their daughter, who has just gone through a divorce. They will not be moving until they have sold their current house. And although they would like to get to Florida as soon as possible, they are ready to stand their ground regarding the price. So the property has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. It's listed for $350 in a well-established neighborhood. It requires new carpeting throughout the first floor and a new garage door opener. 3 offers have been made, but all were below the asking price. Okay, so using what we've just talked about so far, Tanisha, take a couple of minutes and prepare your negotiation. Present your case to the partner and practice positioning. Go back and forth a couple of times. Okay, so
just to be clear, my buyer is offering, I didn't see the slide with the buyers.
Page 12.
Okay, it's on page 12 of your participant guide if you have that in front of you. If not, I'll read it again what your buyers are doing. They're offering $340,000. The house is listed for $350,000. They're offering $340,000. They have been pre-approved. They want to close in the shortest amount of time possible because they're moving from out of state and they need a home for their family. They would also like the buyers to include all of the appliances in the sale.
Okay.
Okay. And so once you're ready to go, you can just present your case to me as the listing agent as to what the offer is, what the scenario is, and why. And then as the listing agent, I will come back with what the sellers are thinking, what the sellers want, unless we can go back a couple of times and see if we can maybe find some common ground.
Okay, so I just talk about what my buyer wants pretty much.
Sure, absolutely. You can be like we're on the phone, like, you know, hey, Rhonda, got the phone with my buyers, right? We'd like to present an offer on the property, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call, and it was great meeting you at the open house on Sunday. My client is very interested in the property, and we're considering an offer. And first, I would like to find out more about what the seller's intentions are, and also just to see you know, their timeline of closing, what their preferred date of closing is. Just share with me some information about your seller's motivation.
Great job, Tanisha. Yeah, awesome. It was great to meet you too at the open house, Tanisha. I really appreciated you bringing your buyers through. So yeah, absolutely. So the sellers have actually purchased a home in Florida that they would like to move to. The home is, they've just, their kids are all grown, so the house is just a little too big with them. That's the reason why they're selling. They do have a place to go, yet the most important thing to them in the sale really is their purchase price. And, you know, we have received offers to date, nothing has come together. However, the most important thing to them is them getting the price that they would like for their home.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that, and can certainly appreciate the seller's position here. My client, I just like to share with you the offer that, you know, will be presented, and I'll be sending you to you in writing. But my client, they're strong buyers. They're pre-approved already. Actually, we have gone through desktop underwriting, so my client's file is pretty clean, and you know, very, very strong buyers. They also have expressed interest in the appliances. I noticed that it wasn't noted in the MLS. However, they would like to add those to their offer. They're, you know, this is their first home. They're really excited. They love the house, and you know, the appliance just complements the house perfectly that it stands. So they'll definitely be interested in that. And again, like I said, they're pre-approved. I did do a CMA of your property, and I can appreciate the price that your seller wants. However, based on what the market analysis shows, you know, my client's best offer would be 340. I know it's not what your seller is hoping for, but you know, I know that this price is a very strong offer based on the comps of that property. I don't know, did I miss anything?
Great. Yeah, no, that's great. My only suggestion would be is that just, you know, like present the offer and then just let it sit. The offer is going to speak for itself. Instead of like, you know, feeling like you have to explain. So just kind of prevent the facts of the offer. Listen, my buyers they're really excited about the house. They love the house. Go ahead, Shelley. I'm going to let you go ahead.
And Shelley has, yep.
I didn't want to interrupt you, Cheryl, but I was just kind of curious because we are in the very early in this negotiation, if you will. Wouldn't we call and ask the questions of, you know, talk to my buyer, get, you know, their bottom lines and all of this, but before I, you know, then call the listing agent. But before I threw out what I was going to offer, wouldn't I want the answers to those questions first? Because then perhaps take it back to my client and say there isn't any wiggle room in this area or this area. Do you want to rethink this before we put in that offer that you had, you know, wanted to previously? Or I mean,
yeah, that absolutely could be an approach. Absolutely. Tanisha could have called and asked those questions up front. We'll assume that she already did that, and this is the offer that they came up with that they want to present. But, you know, so, you know, Tanisha, you did a great job. I mean, I know it's uncomfortable the first time that you're doing this role play stuff. I know it's uncomfortable. It'll get easier the more you do it. But you did a great job. You were very thorough. Listen, you know, my buyers they love the house. They're pleased to make an offer of $340,000. They are really well, you know, they're already approved. It's already been through underwriting. So there's going to be no problems with that mortgage. They are coming in from out of state, so I'd like to get in the house as soon as possible. They are leaving their appliances behind, so even though they're not in MLS, they'd really like to add those into the sale. Right, and then and then as a listing agent, but first of all, like as a listing agent, you got to go talk to your sellers, right? And so as a listing agent, I would say, you know, Tanisha, thank you so much. I truly appreciate the offer from your buyers. I'm going to get back to the seller and present it to them. But you know what, Tanisha, I am going to let you know that we've had other offers on the property that have been below asking, and the sellers have been inclined to really stick to their purchase price. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go talk with them and walk them through all of the terms of this offer yet. I just wanted to let you know that. And I understand that your buyers do want the appliances. They have already promised them to their daughter. So we're going to have to, figure out if we can find some common ground on the appliances as well. But let me get back to them, and then I'm going to come back to you and I'll let you know what they say, and then we can go from there. So, you have to be careful as that listing agent receiving the offer that you're not negotiating without talking to your seller first. You want to be careful the language you use so that you're not saying there's no way my sellers are taking that offer. They want their right. You can't speak for them. And again, you want to be calm, you want to be collaborative, and you want to keep that. You want to keep your this is a relationship business, not only agent to client. This is a relationship business, agent to agent. And there's a chance that Tanisha and I are going to do many deals together over the years, and you want to keep that relationship healthy, right? So you always want to make sure you're just being respectful and thanking for the offer, thanking for the time to show your listing, and say, I'm going to go talk to them and I'm going to come back. So now pretend I went and talked to the sellers. Now I'm going to call back. Hey, Tanisha, it's Rhonda. I had a chance to sit down and talk with my sellers and present the offer. As I mentioned, price is the most important thing to them. However, I was able to get them down $5,000 to $345,000. They were willing to give a little bit on the price. However, the appliances, as I mentioned, were already promised to the daughter. And so they really want to leave those out of the sale. If you can make those two things work, they're happy to close in 30 days so that your family can get, your buyer's family can get in here, and they will start making arrangements to move down to their house to Florida. Does that sound like something that might be amenable to your buyers? Can you let us know?
Absolutely. Thank you for checking with your seller and getting back to me. I appreciate that. I definitely will talk to my buyer and find out if this is something that they will consider.
Perfect. That's perfect. And then you would go and talk to your buyers, and again, right? Anytime there's an offer, anytime there's an offer placed, even if it's a counter offer, it's still an offer. One of three things is going to happen. It's going to be accepted, it's going to be rejected, or there's going to be another counter offer that comes. That is one of those three things is going to happen no matter how many times you go back. When I took that negotiation course years ago, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received in negotiating is let it take the time it needs to take, right? Sometimes we get so nervous and we just want it over and we just want to get it done in two passes. All right, just get it done, get it done, get it done. It's okay if it takes 3 or 4 times to go back. The only time that is a problem sometimes in this market is there's other offers coming in at the same time, which then may bump off your negotiation. But if you're having a one-on-one conversation between a buyer and a seller, it's okay to just try to find that common ground, right? Nowadays in this market, sometimes buyers don't get much time to think about placing an offer. Sellers they have a little bit more leniency to take time, but you, as a buyer's agent, you have to remember that there's other offers that can pop up at any moment. And even though you're in negotiation, if you don't have a signed contract, you are not under contract to buy that property. So on the buyer side, there's a little bit more of I want to get it done so we can be in agreement and we can get signed up. So you just have to be aware of that. But sometimes it's not a one and done pass. Okay, so Tanisha, you went and talked to your buyers, and what did they say?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I had a conversation with the buyers, and they really love the house. That like I shared, they're moving from out of state, and this will be the perfect fit for them. So they will consider the 355. Is that what?
45. You're close. 45. Okay, 355. Okay.
And in terms of the appliances, they can appreciate that the seller have already made arrangements. So they will not bother with the appliances. But if the seller will consider a credit at closing for them, for the appliances, they will certainly consider moving forward.
That's awesome. That's great. And that's awesome to go back to that and negotiate. Another thing might be, listen, if they'll just leave the kitchen appliances and take the washer and dryer, or if they'll leave the washer and dryer and take, then, right. So there's a lot of ways to like work that in, and that may go back and forth a few times to kind of, to work out those appliances. It may be that the sellers may then come back and say, listen, if you want the appliances, then we want the $350. We're going to want our full price. And then at that point, we'll be willing to leave all of the appliances except the washer and dryer. So there may be some give and take a little bit as you go through that. But that's okay, right? In getting that done. Sometimes you got to be a little bit creative on that.
Absolutely.
Anne Marie, do you have a question?
I do have a question. That was a great role play, and you did go back and forth a couple times. So my question is each time you go back and forth, does it have to be in writing on the PNS?
Good question. That's a great question.
So you wait until the negotiations are done and then make them?
So sometimes those negotiations will just be over the phone. It might be a phone call going back and forth. However, always, if just as Tanisha and I were doing, as if we were talking on the phone, I usually will say, listen, I'm going to go back. If I gave her the counter, right, then I'm gonna say, you know what, she'll say, I'm gonna go back to my buyer. Great. You know what, I'm gonna just shoot you a text message or an email. So that way you just have it actually in writing. Because sometimes if you're on the phone and maybe you're in the car and you're doing 300 things, and then you're like, did they say, right, was it 345 or did we say, now I don't remember exactly, because I was in a place I didn't write it down. So, or as the receiving agent of the counter, I would say, hey, Tanisha, just do me a favor. Can you just throw that in a text message to me or throw it in an email to me so I have it in writing? And that way I make sure I go back to them with the correct terms of exactly what your buyer is looking for. Okay. Right? Sometimes we're negotiating 4 deals in one day, and we're human. So it's very easy to just kind of forget and mix things up, right? So don't be afraid to say, hey, just can you please just shoot it to me in writing? That way I have it and I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let's move forward. What time is it? Oh, it's already 11:35.
Yep.
Time is flying when you're having fun. Okay, so we already did this. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so analyze counter tactics. So on page 13 of your guide. Okay. So this is another activity. So let's see what they want us to do here. So in negotiating, your clients and/or agents may use certain methods or tactics to manipulate the negotiation. Because these tactics are generally predictable, you can learn to quickly and accurately identify them when they are being used on you. Additionally, you can respond with the appropriate counter tactic with a high probability of accurately predicting how your response will be taken. Following the 3 most common tactics used in negotiation with a partner, brainstorm counter topics to stop the tactic. That was a mouthful. So you're going to go back to, so page 13. So there's 3 tactics: nibbling, a hot potato, and the good guy, bad guy. So with a partner, so we can do this together, brainstorm the counter topics. So once your client has agreed upon one major concession, the other party will start nibbling for additional smaller concessions. So what is a counter tactic that you might be able to use? Utilizing these tactics here on this page. So if the buyer starts nibbling, the buyer's agent is nibbling, right?
Rhonda, just kind of use for an example with the appliances, I would imagine, where you were
Yep.
saying about, you know, oh, well, maybe if we can't do all of them, maybe just leave the washer and dryer, or maybe just the refrigerator and we'll get the rest, or whatever you have to do to make it work.
Yep. So the counter tactic and using those, so for nibbling though, you might use the hot potato. The counter tactic might be the hot potato. So when I said to Tanisha, listen, they really promised those appliances to their daughter, so they really want to leave them out of the sale. She can then use the hot potato tactic and say, listen, I totally appreciate that yet my clients really can't go out and afford to buy appliances if they're going to pay $350,000 for the house, right? So they're kind of passing it back onto you. Does that make sense? I think it's a little bit confusing. Yeah, Tom?
Can you use the fact that, you know, a lot of occasions when people move appliances out, you know, there can be potential damage to walls or floors. You know, and, you know, they wouldn't want that either, you know, to give something to their daughter and have problems with floors or walls on the move out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are all things that you can absolutely, sometimes it's like when you're speaking with sellers before listing the house and they're like, oh, I kind of want to take the washer and dryer with me. I don't think I'm going to leave the washer and dryer. You know, sometimes it's just reminding them, listen, like it's a pain to move washer and dryers, right? It honestly just might be easier for you to leave them and then purchase another set in your new home. And you know, if you're also helping them find something, chances are that the washer and dryer is going to stay in the new home as well. So if they're kind of being super sticklers about the washer and dryer, I might put them in as negotiable, not include them in the sale. But yet, if somebody asks for them and in your next scenario, you're going to already have a set and then it's okay to leave them, then that's okay too, right? Sometimes you're going to leave things a little open-ended and you're going to negotiate them just on, you know, at a later time.
Yeah, it's interesting. These days, appliances are tough to touch, so
yeah,
they become more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, right? Sometimes like you can't get appliances, you can't get them delivered, and so that might be a tactic in here as well. Like, listen, I totally understand that, yet my buyers don't want to move in and not have appliances.
Right.
Because it's so hard to get them right now. So that really is a strong negotiating point for them, but they really want to keep the appliances. And listen, they'll pay your full asking price for it, but they want to keep the appliances.
Yeah.
Right. Or in the case of them just not wanting to have to go out and buy appliances, because if they were going to pay $345,000 for the house and then have to buy appliances, I mean, that could be another $10,000, $15,000, right? Maybe a tactic would be, you know what, Tanisha, or Rhonda, if I'm the buyer's agent now, you know, hey, Rhonda, you know what, my buyers are actually willing to go $5,000 over asking price if you'll leave the appliances in the house. Right now, the sellers are going to be like, oh, okay, you know what, we can probably maybe buy secondhand appliances for our daughter in the meantime.
Right.
And so it's a matter of just finding that, you know, where that is and using these tactics. Like hot potato means that the other party passes the problem back to you. Personally, I don't really like that. I don't like that. I don't like the good guy. I'm a collaborative negotiator. I always want to just find the solution. But just know that these are here. These are different tactics that you can use. These tactics might be used on you, right? So how do you counter that? Right. If somebody's trying to pass the problem onto you, then how do you counter that? So if somebody says, if they try to pass it your way, then you might come back with a little bit of nibbling and even just say, hey, listen, you know what, we just agreed to this major concession on there. Like, we just feel like we really agreed to this major concession. Like, what's the most important thing to you? Okay, we just agreed to that. So we would really appreciate it if we can then take care of this, over here. Furniture, right? We're talking about being a salesman, furniture, like
Don't
that
do
stuff,
it.
that stuff is like, you're right. And that stuff has come into play, right? Where though sometimes it can work to your advantage. Listen, I know we're 5,000 away on the asking price. Would the seller consider leaving the lawnmower and some of the yard tools? If they're willing to do that, then we'll agree to the price, because that's less money we have to put out when we buy the house. So sometimes that stuff will come into play. You do want to be careful though, when it's the used furniture salesman, like if it's getting thrown into the deal, like that's okay. What the stickler comes in is like, hey, are the sellers willing to leave any of the furniture? Right. And now you're negotiating $500 for this and $300, and we'll take all the furniture for $2,500. And then it's like, that's when you're just like, listen, I'm not a furniture salesman, and this is not part of the contract. So that's where you want to be careful. But sometimes leaving something of personal value in the house, that might actually be a negotiating item down the road. Say the buyer came in and they were admiring, a piece of one of the pictures on the wall during the showing. Something came up in the inspections. The sellers don't want to really do anything for inspections. Or you might say, hey, you know what? When they were in, they loved that picture. How would you feel about leaving that? Let me offer that picture up to them. Right? Like crazier things have happened. So there's a lot of negotiation stuff that you're just going to start flowing into, and just being open and collaborative. Here's one thing that that we didn't talk about earlier, as far as other ways that you're negotiating your commission. When you're sitting down at the table with the seller, negotiating a listing contract, right? You may have to negotiate on your commission. Right? The seller may say, listen, I had somebody in here who said they'll do it for 4%. So I don't want to pay more than 4% commission. How are you going to negotiate for yourself? Right? That's a good one. That's a good one to go through, right? There's a couple of ways that you can do that. First of all, my suggestion always is to be the one to bring up the commission discussion. Don't wait for the seller to ask you what your commission is, because then you're playing defense, you're not playing offense. Right? So get it out of the way. Be the one to bring it up. Hey, Tanisha, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I want to go over my marketing plan, go over all of the terms of listing your home, all of the expenses that are going to come for you to list your home. We're going to talk about listing price. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, let's talk about expenses. What is this going to cost you to list your home? Let's talk about commission. I typically ask for a 6% commission as a listing agent, and here's why. This is everything that my team is going to handle for you during the process of you selling your home, and you're going to have them all listed out. And for that, we ask for a 6% fee, and we're going to share 50% of that with a buyer's agent, with the agent who brings the buyer to your home. We're going to give them 3% of that commission. Then if they come back and say, listen, 6%, wow, the other guy was here, he was going to do it for 4%. Is there any wiggle room in that price, in that rate? Now, by law, commission is always negotiable. So you can't say, no, I'm sorry, it's not negotiable. That's the standard commission rate. It's always negotiable by law. So you say, listen, I don't want commission to be the reason that you don't list your home with me. So let's absolutely have that conversation. Well, I understand that agent's going to do it for 4%. That means that if they're splitting 50-50 with the buyer's agent, they're only offering them 2%. I like to offer buyer's agents 3% commission. So that way, if they're looking at properties for their buyers, they're going to be super excited to show our house, because the broker fee is 3%. Right, so that's one thing to say. Another tactic to say is, listen, I can appreciate them doing it for 4%, but yet if that's how they negotiate for themselves, do you really want them negotiating for you against other buyers? If a listing agent can't negotiate for their own, for their own fee, how are they going to be in negotiating in the deal for you?
Absolutely.
Right? You can also negotiate and say, listen, I totally appreciate that. How about this? Would you be comfortable if there is a buyer's agent in the transaction, you would agree to pay a 6% fee so I can give them 3% of the transaction. If there's no buyer's agent in the transaction, if a buyer comes, is unrepresented and agrees to be that they want to be unrepresented, meaning I would only be a facilitator to them. I would continue to represent you fully. I would only be a facilitator to them and would help them fill out paperwork. I would give them no counsel. I would give them no advice. In that case, I will reduce my commission to 5% and save you a percentage point. So you can do something like that as well.
Okay. Any questions, guys? Okay.
Okay, so let's talk here. So on the screen here, the counter tactics. So, hey, ask for a concession in return. We were just talking about all this. Ask for a concession in return before agreeing to any further concessions. Listen, we already agreed to this. So I would like your side to now come back with this. Would this be possible? It's all about finding common ground. B, test the validity. Find out if the problem is real. Has the party with the problem exhausted every possible solution? So in the appliance situation, right? If the sellers are like, listen, we really already promised those appliances. I understand that you want appliances, to come with the house. Have you looked on Facebook lately in the marketplace? Somebody was just selling like a full set of appliances for $1,000. And then C, call them on their game. If it continues, and attribute what the bad guy says to the good guy, since they are a tag team anyway. This likely will diffuse the tactic because now you have two bad guys. Again, this is not my favorite. It's not my approach on how to do things. Okay, let's go we can move forward. I know we're
and running a little bit low.
Yep. Okay, so what's next? We're almost done. We're getting there. Okay, so putting it all together on page 14. Oh, 13, okay. Okay, so we got one more case here. So buyer's agent role. Your client has found the house they love and it's in the neighborhood they want. It's at the top of their price range and does need some work updating the kitchen and master bathroom. Your client makes an offer on the property and the seller's agent says, I must warn you that we have gotten several offers and your offer is pretty low. So now the listing agent, the sellers need to move within 45 days for a job transfer. You feel you've priced the house competitively. You are aware the house needs updating, but the sellers don't see the need because the house was just fine for them. They have multiple offers, but the timing may not work. There are other offers still standing, but the timing may not work. And the latest offer is lower than the asking price. You have let the buyer's agent know, I must warn you that we have gotten several offers and your offer is pretty low. So let's see. Take one or 2 minutes to prepare for negotiation, review your role. Okay. So who wants to be the buyer's agent and who wants to be the listing agent? We're gonna do this in like just a few minutes because then I really want to hear your ahas from the day and any questions that you have. Who wants to go? Anyone? Come on, don't be shy. I can volunteer somebody if you want me to. Come on, who wants to do it?
I'll be the buyer's agent.
Awesome, thank you, Mitch. Okay, Mitch is going to be the buyer's agent. He said, who wants to be the listing agent? Come on, guys. Somebody, I'm not doing it this time. Come on.
I'll be the listing agent.
All right, Deb.
Just move through it here. All right, go ahead. Who's the buyer agent again?
It's Mitch.
I am.
All right.
All right, so am I calling the listing agent up? Is that how that's working?
Yep.
Okay, so my client really loves the house and they would love to put an offer in. I don't see where the offer is here.
It's low.
It's too low. So is there any where we could meet in the middle on this? And I noticed that there's 45 days to move. So let's see, I didn't read this. You've gotten some offers on the property already?
Yep, we have. We've received several offers on the property. I will let you know that my seller is very important for them to close in 45 days, as I had on MLS. And but your offer is a little bit low, and the sellers have opted to send it back to you for your best and final.
Okay, well, I appreciate that and thank you for that. Noticing that, I do notice that you had stated that the other offer, the last offer, was also lower than asking price. Is there anywhere we can meet in the middle on this and maybe come above your client's last lower price, and maybe I could go back and present them my client with a better that they would bring to the table a better offer?
Well, they really would like your buyer to just come back in with their best and final offer, and then I'll present all offers to my sellers tonight and get back to you by tomorrow.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I will go back and let them know that they do need to come to the table with a bit higher offer. So what would that offer look like? I'm wondering.
Well, it's really more about the timeline. They really want to be out in 45 days. If that's something that your folks can do, I would, certainly let them know that's very important to the seller.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let me go back and I will get back to you. Let's say within the day.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mick. Looking forward to hearing back from you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I wasn't being
Perfect. That was great. Hold on one second. Let me just turn this off. Okay. That was awesome. And I loved that, Mitch, that you kept asking questions to try to find out what was most important to those sellers, and Deb saying that 45 days was most important to them. And therefore, if that was the most important piece in putting that offer together. I also love that at some point you're going to try to meet in the middle. Highest and best, sometimes it's highest and best. And then going back to those buyers and saying, you got to put your best foot forward on the highest and best offer. And you have to come up with the purchase price where if you find out if it sells for $1 more tomorrow, you're going to be okay knowing that that is not your house, right? That's the trick with highest and best offer, is come up with the highest price. And in highest and best scenarios, sometimes as a buyer, you're going to pay more for the property than you would if there was only one, if you were the only offer on the table. So letting them know that and saying, we need to find that price where if you don't get it and it sells for just $1 more, you're going to say, you know what, I wasn't willing to go there. I just wasn't going to go there. Yeah. Right. But by asking all of those questions, sometimes the listing agent's not going to tell you much at all, right? Sometimes the seller's going to keep their hand in tight, and you're not going to get much from them. Yet if you just ask all the questions that you can ask, take the information that you can take, and then go back and just put your best foot forward.
I agree. And as the listing agent, I felt like he was really looking for me to tell him what the price should be, what they want for the price. And I think in the scenario, it's almost a little bit doesn't sound like they're getting very good offers. And the timing certainly isn't working out. So, but I agree, just keep asking questions. I didn't say much, but a lot of listing agents will tell you with a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, so ask and then listen. And sometimes when you don't say anything, then they get little squirrely and they'll start telling more than they should.
That's right. Stop talking at some point and let them fill let somebody else fill that
Let the
silence.
silence do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, exactly.
You too. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Okay, great. So let's Steve, let's go to the next slide. I think we should be just about wrapped up. I really want to get some ahas, and I really want to get any additional questions that you all have on negotiating. Every negotiation is going to be different. And I think if you just, go along the lines of always being collaborative, staying calm, asking questions, understanding goals and motivations, you're going to do just fine. So what questions do you guys have and what ahas?
I have a question.
Yeah,
sure.
While negotiating the concession, I heard somewhere, suppose it's 3%, you can explain them that, and they say some other person is doing it for less. You can explain the division of the 3%. And the only place where there's wiggle room will be on the marketing and section. And so if the other person is doing for less, and that's where they'll be compromising, because one is the market center, the broker fees, your family expenses, and the only place is the marketing. That's where you can cut down. And so will that work? I wanted to.
So yeah, you can absolutely, again, it's about, if you're talking about commission, you really want to present what your value, what are you bringing to the table and what supports the fee that you are asking for. And if you are providing value and you are explaining what your value is to them, then most times a seller is not going to give you, they're going to say, okay, yes, I understand that. You can absolutely say, listen, if that person is doing it for 4%, I would love to understand what their marketing plan is, because part of what the commission that you're going to pay me is going to go into your marketing plan, and this is my marketing plan of everything that we're going to do for you. And so if another agent is offering a less commission, you really want to understand everything that they're going to offer and everything that they're going to do to market your property, right? And then if they say, listen, I don't want to do it for less than 4, you can absolutely say, okay, then you know what, these are the things then that I can do, because I need to be able to, right? I need to be able to have the money to do that. So you can go down, but it's always really about explaining what your value is going to be, and also that you're going to share that commission with the other side. And sometimes the seller doesn't understand what happens to your commission. They think you're putting that whole 6% in your pocket. So also saying this is what happens to the commission. I'm going to share 3% with the buyer's agent, and then also I'm going to share my commission with my brokerage company, as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How about ideas or mindset? Anybody have any new ideas or new mindset they're going to do as we move forward?
It's been mentioned in many other meetings, but it's always good to have reminders, and just that one sentence, why is this important to you? That's a great toolbox thing, and it's good for both sides. So I wrote that down and put a big happy face next to it.
Love that, Tom.
Alicia has her hand up.
Okay, Alicia.
So I have a question when it comes to the offer. Let's say I represent the seller and a buyer's broker brings an offer which is totally unsubstantiated by the current market condition and is very, very low. How do you handle that as the seller's agent?
So
the buyer's agent.
The buyer's agent presented you with an offer that's very, very low and not substantiated by the market. How do you handle that?
Yes.
Great. So you would just, say, hey, thank you. I appreciate the offer. I will absolutely go and present that to the seller, because again, you have to present it to the seller. I will present it to the seller. It is a lot lower than what we anticipated the market value to be. I can't promise you that I'm going to get a response out of him or a counter offer, yet I'm going to talk with them and I will be back to you with the seller's response, whatever, in the next day or so. Really,
Okay,
that's
thank
really
you.
all you can do is your response is you're going to go present it and you're going to get back to them. Even if the offer is like the perfect offer that you got, even if you just got this offer, it's 25,000 over asking price, it's like everything that you're asking for. Your response to that buyer's agent is going to be, thank you so much, so appreciate the offer. I'm going to get this over to them right away. We're going to discuss it, and we will be back to you. Whatever, because it's not your decision. You need to speak to your sellers. You cannot speak for your sellers.
But your seller is going to be offended. You already know that.
Yeah, in the case of the low offer, your seller is going to be offended. So I would preempt that one with, listen, I'll get back to the seller. It's really, really low. I can't promise I'm going to get a response from them or a counter offer, but yet let me talk with them and I will be back with you. You don't want to say, you know what, my seller's going to be so offended by this, because you don't want to speak for them, right? So
Okay.
but you can say it's kind of low. I feel like, it's a lot lower than where we have it marketed after our research, but I'll get it to them and we'll get back to you. You just want to avoid speaking for your seller directly by saying the seller's going to be absolutely offended by this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rhonda, there's occasions where a low offer starts low, but I've had a number of occasions where they wound up being the successor in the end. They became more realistic. They were testing the waters, and it doesn't make you happy when you see them that low, but sometimes it's a starting point, and it will come to a finish point, and it can work out. So you don't want to insult anyone along the way.
Exactly. And that's such a great point, Tom, for you as the listing agent receiving the offer, is don't close the door on that buyer's agent. Don't close the door on that offer. Because they may come back, they may just be kind of testing to see how motivated the seller is and then come back. So you want to make sure that you're being collaborative and you're entering that with a positive mindset towards them as well. Absolutely. Anything else?
I think the conversation on escalation clause helped a lot of individuals today, that they were reminded of it or introduced to it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you need help, there's so much resource for you in our market centers. Reach out to your leadership team if you're having trouble, if you're negotiating your first contract and you just need some pointers, or you want to run something by somebody. You just got this offer, you're not really sure what to do with it. You don't know maybe any solutions that you could go back with. Definitely talk with somebody in your market center. We're here to help you, and totally happy to strategize with you and help you come up with some ideas that maybe you could talk with your client about on how you might want to go back to answer an offer.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all for letting us spend the last 3 hours with you. I hope that you guys found today helpful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very good. I've got to run to another appointment. So have a great day and have a great
Bye, guys.
Thanksgiving,
We'll
everyone.
see you tomorrow. Bye, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Fast.
Thanksgiving.
Oops.
Thank you.
Thank you.